Hello, horror lover. Are you ready for a long night of nightmares? Before we begin, I want to ask you to subscribe to the channel, and especially leave a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I'd love to know. Click the like button, all of this because the cursor blinked lazily on my laptop screen, a steady rhythm matching the ticking of the old grandfather clock in the corner of my study. It was just another Tuesday, or so I thought. The soft glow of the monitor illuminated my face in the dimming afternoon light as I scrolled through my inbox, deleting spam and responding to work emails with the mechanical efficiency of a man who'd rather be anywhere else. That's when I saw it. The name that shouldn't have been there. Couldn't have been there. Jack Thurman. My finger froze over the trackpad, my breath catching in my throat. "What the hell?" I muttered, leaning closer to the screen as if the proximity might somehow change what I was seeing. Jack had been dead for 2 years. I'd watched them lower his casket into the ground, heard the dull thud of dirt hitting wood. I'd held his widow Sarah as she sobbed into my shoulder at the wake. Dead men don't send emails. And yet, there it was, bold and unread, with today's date stamp. From Jack Thurman, jack.thurman@gmail.com. Subject, help me. My hand shook as I clicked on the message, half expecting it to disappear like a mirage. But it opened, and the words that filled my screen sent a chill down my spine. "Mike, I know you won't believe this, but it's me, Jack. I'm in danger and I need your help. Remember the fishing trip to Lake Winnipesaukee when we were 16? How you fell out of the boat trying to reel in that monster bass and I dove in after you even though I couldn't swim? I need you to dive in for me now, buddy. They're coming for me, and you're the only one I can trust. Please, for the love of God, help me." I read the message 3 times, my mind reeling. The Lake Winnipesaukee story wasn't something I'd shared with anyone else. It was our secret, a moment of teenage stupidity and bravery that had cemented our friendship. How could anyone else know about that? "This isn't happening," I said to the empty room, running a hand through my thinning hair. "This isn't real." But the email sat there, undeniably real, the words burning into my retinas. I reached for my phone with trembling fingers, scrolling through my contacts until I found Sarah's number. It rang 4 times before she picked up. "Hello?" Her voice was soft, tentative. "Sarah, it's Mike," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I need to ask you something, and it's going to sound crazy." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Okay," she said slowly. I took a deep breath. "Have you received any strange messages lately? Emails, maybe?" The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear Sarah's breathing, quick and shallow. "Sarah?" I prompted. "How did you know?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. My heart sank. "You got one too?" "Yesterday," she said. I thought I was losing my mind. It sounded just like him, Mike. How is this possible? I glanced back at my computer screen, at the impossible email from our dead friend. "I don't know, Sarah, but I'm going to find out." We talked for a few more minutes, Sarah's voice growing more frantic as she described her own message from Jack. It was different from mine, filled with intimate details of their life together that she swore no one else could know. By the time we hung up, my head was spinning. I spent the next few hours in a daze, poring over old emails from Jack, comparing writing styles, searching for any clue that might explain what was happening. As the sun set outside my window, casting long shadows across my desk, I found myself staring at old photos of Jack and me. There we were, arms slung over each other's shoulders, grins plastered on our faces as we held up a stringy bass from that fateful day at Lake Winnipesaukee. Jack's eyes sparkled with life, his laugh almost audible through the faded photograph. How could that vibrant young man be gone? And if he was truly gone, who the hell was sending these emails? My phone buzzed, startling me out of my reverie. It was a text from Tom, another friend from our old circle. "Did you get one too?" it read. My stomach lurched. I called him immediately. "Tom, "What's going on?" I demanded as soon as he picked up. "I don't know, man." Tom's voice was shaky. "I got this email from Jack's old address. At first I thought it was some sick joke, but it knew things only Jack would know," I finished for him. "Yeah," Tom breathed. "Mike, what the hell is happening?" I shook my head, forgetting for a moment that Tom couldn't see me. "I wish I knew. Sarah got one too. Have you heard from anyone else?" "Lisa texted me about an hour ago. She's freaking out." I leaned back in my chair, my mind racing. "Okay, look, we need to figure this out. Can you meet me at Denny's tomorrow morning? Say, 8 a.m.? I'll ask Lisa to come too." Tom agreed, and we hung up. I sat there in the growing darkness, the glow of my computer screen the only light in the room. As I stared at Jack's email, a new message notification popped up. My breath caught in my throat as I saw the sender, Jack Thurman. With a trembling hand, I opened the email. 2 words stared back at me. "Help me." As the grandfather clock chimed midnight, I realized that this was only the beginning. Whatever was happening, whatever force was reaching out from beyond the grave, I was now irrevocably caught in its web. And as I sat there, surrounded by the ghosts of the past and the terrifying uncertainty of the future, I couldn't shake the feeling that by the time this was over, I might be joining Jack in whatever realm he now inhabited. Little did I know, as I finally crawled into bed that night, my dreams haunted by Jack's pleas, that this was just the first chapter in a nightmare that would challenge everything I thought I knew about life. The incessant buzzing of my phone dragged me from a fitful sleep. I blinked, disoriented, as the events of the previous night came rushing back. Jack's impossible email, the frantic calls, the growing sense of dread. I fumbled for my phone, squinting at the screen. A barrage of missed calls and text messages greeted me, all from our mutual friends. My stomach churned as I scrolled through them, each one more desperate than the last. "Mike, did you get an email from Jack too? Call me ASAP, something weird is going on. Have you heard from Tom? He's not answering his phone." I sat up, my head pounding. This was spreading, whatever it was. I quickly typed out a group message. "Meeting at Joe's Diner, 9 a.m. We need to talk about this." I threw on some clothes and headed out, my mind racing. The morning air was crisp, but I barely noticed it. By the time I reached Joe's Diner, my palms were sweating despite the chill. Tom and Lisa were already there, huddled in a corner booth. Their faces were pale, eyes ringed with dark circles. They looked up as I approached, a mix of relief and anxiety in their expressions. "Mike," Lisa said, her voice trembling slightly. "Thank God you're here." I slid into the booth across from them, nodding at Joe behind the counter to bring me a coffee. "All right," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Let's see what we're dealing with." Tom and Lisa exchanged glances before pulling out their phones. They pushed them across the table to me, open to their email apps. I scrolled through the messages, my heart sinking with each one. Tom's email was eerily similar to mine. "Tom, it's Jack. I know this sounds impossible, but I need your help. Remember that night in college when we broke into the dean's office to change your grade? I covered for you when campus security almost caught us. I need you to cover for me now. They're coming, Tom. Please help me." Lisa's was different, but no less chilling. "Lisa, it's me. Jack. I know you never believed in the supernatural, but you have to believe this. Remember when I helped you through your mom's illness? How I was there every step of the way? I need that kind of support now. Something's wrong, Lisa, really wrong. I can't explain it, but I'm in danger. Please help me." I looked up at them, my mouth dry. "These are specific, personal." Lisa nodded, her eyes wide. "That's what's so terrifying. No one else knew about my mom. I never told anyone how much Jack helped me during that time." Tom ran a hand through his hair, his coffee untouched in front of him. "It has to be Jack," he said, his voice low. "But how? We buried him, for Christ's sake." I leaned back, my mind whirling. "Okay, let's think this through. What do we know for sure? We know that multiple people have received emails from Jack's account, Lisa said, ticking off points on her fingers. We know these emails contain information only Jack would know. And we know that Jack was dead. Could it be a hacker? I suggested, grasping at straws. Someone who knew Jack well enough to know intimate details about all of us? Tom interrupted, shaking his head. No way. This is something else. We fell into a tense silence broken only by the clinking of dishes and muffled conversations from other diners. Joe refilled our cups, eyeing us curiously but saying nothing. Tom suddenly straightened up, his eyes gleaming with a dangerous intensity. I have an idea, he said, lowering his voice. What if we try to trace the emails? I know a guy who's good with this stuff. Maybe he can find out where they're coming from. Lisa frowned. Is that even legal? Tom waved his hand dismissively. Does it matter? Our dead friend is sending us emails begging for help. I think we're a bit beyond worrying about legalities. I felt a knot forming in my stomach. I don't know, Tom. This feels dangerous. Dangerous? Tom scoffed. Mike, our friend might be alive out there somewhere, or someone's using his memory to manipulate us. Either way, we need answers. He stood up abruptly, tossing some bills on the table. I'm going to see my guy. I'll call you as soon as I know something. Tom, wait. I started, but he was already halfway to the door. I'll be careful, he called over his shoulder. Promise I'll check in later. And then he was gone, the bell over the door jingling in his wake. Lisa and I sat in stunned silence for a moment. Should we go after him? She asked, her voice small. I shook my head. You know, Tom, once he gets an idea in his head, there's no stopping him. I tried to smile reassuringly, but it felt forced. He'll be fine. Let's give him a few hours. We spent the next hour picking at our cold eggs and refilling our coffee cups, discussing theories that grew more outlandish with each passing minute. Ghosts, government conspiracies, elaborate pranks. Nothing seemed too far-fetched in the face of our current reality. Finally, Lisa stood up. I should go. I told work I'd be in late, but I can't put it off any longer. I nodded, standing as well. Yeah, same here. Let's stay in touch, okay? And let me know if you hear from Tom. We parted ways outside the diner, the weight of our situation hanging heavily between us. I walked back to my apartment in a daze, barely registering the world around me. Every ping from my phone made me jump, hoping it was Tom with news. But as the hours ticked by, that hope turned to worry, then to fear. I called Tom's phone repeatedly, each time getting his cheerful voicemail greeting. I paced my living room, alternating between staring at my phone and checking my email obsessively. By late afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I called Lisa. Have you heard from him? I asked as soon as she picked up. No, she said, the worry evident in her voice. You? Nothing. Lisa, I've got a bad feeling about this. There was a pause on the other end of the line. What should we do? I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. I'm going to his place. Maybe he just fell asleep or something. We both knew it was unlikely, but Lisa didn't argue. Okay, call me as soon as you know anything. I grabbed my keys and headed out, trying to ignore the growing knot in my stomach. The drive to Tom's apartment was a blur of worst-case scenarios playing out in my mind. When I arrived, the parking lot was quiet. Tom's car was there, which should have been reassuring, but somehow made everything feel worse. I knocked on his door, the sound echoing in the empty hallway. No answer. I tried the handle, surprised to find it unlocked. Tom, I called out, pushing the door open slowly. It's Mike. You in here? The apartment was dark and silent. I fumbled for a light switch, my heart pounding in my chest. As the room illuminated, I gasped. Tom's living room was a mess. Papers were strewn everywhere, his laptop open on the coffee table. On the wall, pinned up with frantic energy, were printouts of the emails, red string connecting them in a web that made sense only to Tom. But Tom was nowhere to be seen. I moved through the apartment, calling his name with increasing desperation. Each empty room ratcheted up my fear. When I returned to the living room, something caught my eye. A new email notification blinked on Tom's laptop screen. With shaking hands, I moved the cursor to open it. The sender's name made my blood run cold. Jack Thurman. The message contained only 5 words, but they were enough to make my world tilt on its axis. "You're too late. He's mine." As I stood there, staring at the screen in horror, I realized that we had stumbled into something far darker and more dangerous than we could have ever imagined. Tom was gone, vanished into the same mystery that had started with Jack's impossible emails, and I had a sickening feeling that if we didn't figure this out soon, he wouldn't be the last. The hunt for answers had claimed its first victim, and as I sank to my knees in Tom's empty apartment, I couldn't shake the terrifying thought that I might be next. The floorboards creaked beneath my feet as I paced back and forth across my living room. The rhythmic sound was the only thing keeping me tethered to reality as my mind raced through the events of the past 24 hours. Jack's emails from beyond the grave, Tom's disappearance, the chilling message on his computer. I glanced at my phone for the 100th time, debating whether to make the call. The police. They should be involved, right? But what would I tell them? That my dead friend was sending emails and my very much alive friend had vanished while investigating? They'd think I was crazy. Maybe I am crazy, I muttered to myself, running a hand through my disheveled hair. I picked up the phone, my thumb hovering over the emergency call button. Just as I was about to press it, a sharp chime from my computer made me jump. My heart raced as I turned to look at the screen. New email from Jack Thurman. "Jesus Christ," I whispered, my legs suddenly feeling weak. I stumbled over to my desk, collapsing into the chair. The cursor hovered over the email, my hand shaking as I debated whether to open it. In the end, curiosity won out over fear. I clicked. The subject line was blank, but there was an attachment, a video file. My throat went dry as I stared at it, remembering the message from Tom's computer. Was this connected? Did I dare find out? "Screw it," I said aloud, double-clicking the file before I could talk myself out of it. The video player opened, filling my screen with static for a moment before clearing to reveal a dimly lit room. The image was grainy, like it was shot on an old cell phone camera, but I could make out concrete walls covered in graffiti and debris scattered across the floor. It looked like an abandoned building, possibly an old factory or warehouse. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then a figure stumbled into frame and my blood ran cold. "Tom," I breathed, leaning closer to the screen. It was him, no doubt about it, but he looked terrible. His clothes were dirty and torn, his face pale and drawn. He kept glancing around nervously as if expecting something to jump out at him at any moment. "Hello?" Tom called out, his voice tinny through my computer speakers. "Is anyone there? Please, I don't understand what's happening." He took a few steps forward, and I could see he was limping slightly. "Jack?" he called. "Jack, if this is you, please, just tell me what's going on. Why are you doing this?" Suddenly, a shadow moved in the background. Tom spun around, his eyes wide with fear. "Who's there?" he shouted, backing away. "Stay back, I'm warning you." The camera shook violently, and for a moment all I could see was a blur of motion. There was a muffled shout, then silence. When the image stabilized, Tom was gone. I sat there, frozen in horror, as the video continued to play, showing nothing but the empty room. Just as I was about to close it, text appeared on the screen. "You're next." The video ended, leaving me staring at my own pale reflection in the black screen. "No," I said, shaking my head. "No, no, no." I jumped up from my chair, knocking it over in my haste. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be happening. I fumbled for my phone, dialing Lisa's number with trembling fingers. She picked up on the second ring. "Mike? What's wrong?" "Lisa," I said, my voice cracking. I think I know what happened to Tom. What? How? Mike, you're scaring me. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I got another email from Jack. There was a video attached. It showed Tom, Lisa. He was in some kind of abandoned building calling out for Jack. And then he disappeared. There was silence on the other end of the line for a long moment. When Lisa spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. What are you saying, Mike? That Jack took Tom? I don't know, I said, running a hand over my face. I don't know what to think anymore, but Lisa, there was a message at the end of the video. It said, "You're next." I heard Lisa's sharp intake of breath. Oh my God, she said. Mike, we need to go to the police. Now. And tell them what? I asked, frustration creeping into my voice. That our dead friend is kidnapping people via email? They'll think we're insane. We can't just do nothing, Lisa shouted. I could hear the panic in her voice, mirroring my own inner turmoil. I know, I said, trying to sound calmer than I felt. Look, can you come over? I think we need to figure this out together. I'll be there in 20 minutes, Lisa said, and hung up. I paced the room again, my mind racing. What were we dealing with here? A ghost? Some kind of supernatural force? Or was this all an elaborate hoax? But if it was a hoax, who would go to such lengths? And why? The sound of a car pulling up outside broke me from my thoughts. I rushed to the window, relief washing over me as I saw Lisa getting out of her car. But as she walked towards my front door, something caught my eye. A figure standing at the end of the street, partially hidden by the shadows of a large oak tree. I squinted, trying to make out details. It was a man, I thought, though I couldn't be sure. He seemed to be watching Lisa as she approached my house. And then, just for a moment, he stepped into a pool of light cast by a street lamp. My heart stopped. It was Jack. Or at least it looked exactly like Jack. Same height, same build, same unruly hair that he could never quite tame. But it couldn't be him. It was impossible. I blinked, and the figure was gone, like it had never been there at all. The doorbell rang, making me jump. I hurried to let Lisa in, trying to shake off the unsettling feeling that had come over me. Mike, Lisa said as soon as I opened the door. Her eyes were red-rimmed, like she'd been crying. Please tell me this is all some kind of mistake, that Tom is fine and we're all just overreacting. I wished I could tell her that. More than anything, I wished I could make this all go away. But as I ushered her inside and closed the door behind us, I knew we were past the point of easy explanations or comforting lies. I'm sorry, Lisa, I said, leading her to the living room. I don't think this is a mistake. Something is happening. Something impossible. I showed her the video, watching her face pale as she took in Tom's terrified expression, his desperate calls for help. When it was over, she looked at me, her eyes wide with fear. What do we do now? She asked. I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could, my computer chimed again. Another email. Lisa and I exchanged a look of dread before I slowly moved to open it. The message was short, but it sent a chill down my spine. The game has begun. Follow the clues, or share Tom's fate. You have 24 hours. Below the message was an address. Lisa gripped my arm, her nails digging into my skin. Mike, she said, her voice shaking. I think we just fell down the rabbit hole. As I stared at the screen, at the countdown timer that had appeared below the message, I knew she was right. We were no longer just observers in this madness. We were participants, and the stakes, it seemed, were life and death. The headlights of my car cut through the darkness, illuminating a narrow road that seemed to stretch endlessly into the night. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel as I followed the GPS directions from Jack's last email. Each mile that passed felt like a step further away from the world I knew and deeper into a nightmare I couldn't comprehend. This is insane, I muttered to myself, glancing at the clock on the dashboard. 11:47 p.m. The timer in the email had given us 24 hours, but something in my gut told me that waiting wasn't an option. Not with Tom missing and Lisa. I swallowed hard, remembering our last conversation just a few hours ago. "I'm going to check out that address," Lisa had said, her voice trembling but determined. "We can't just sit here and do nothing." "Lisa, no," I had protested. "It's too dangerous. We should wait, come up with a plan." "There's no time for that, Mike. Tom is out there scared and alone. What if it were you? Wouldn't you want us to come for you?" I hadn't been able to argue with that. We agreed to go separately, a decision I now regretted with every fiber of my being. Lisa had left first, promising to call me when she arrived. That was 3 hours ago, and her phone had been going straight to voicemail ever since. The GPS chimed, pulling me from my thoughts. "Your destination is on the right," the robotic voice announced, jarringly loud in the quiet car. I slowed down, peering through the windshield. At first, I saw nothing but overgrown bushes and trees. Then, as I inched forward, a break in the foliage revealed a rusted iron gate. Beyond it loomed the dark silhouette of what must have once been a massive factory. "Jesus," I breathed, putting the car in park and killing the engine. For a moment I just sat there listening to the tick of the cooling engine and my own ragged breathing. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around, to drive away and never look back. But the image of Tom's terrified face in that video, the thought of Lisa possibly trapped in there, I couldn't abandon them. With a deep breath, I grabbed my flashlight and got out of the car. The night air was cold and damp, carrying the musty scent of decay. I approached the gate cautiously, half expecting alarms to blare or spotlights to suddenly illuminate me, but there was only silence. I reached out, my hand trembling slightly, and pushed against the gate. It creaked loudly, the sound echoing in the stillness of the night. For a heartbeat, I froze, certain that someone, or something, must have heard that. But nothing happened. Swallowing my fear, I slipped through the gap and onto the factory grounds. The beam of my flashlight danced across overgrown weeds and cracked concrete as I made my way towards the looming building. Every step felt like it might be my last. Every shadow seemed to hide potential dangers. And then I saw it. A car parked haphazardly near a side entrance. My heart leaped into my throat as I recognized it. "Lisa," I whispered, hurrying over. The driver's side door was ajar, and as I got closer, I could see Lisa's phone lying on the seat. I picked it up, noting with a sinking feeling that the screen was cracked and the battery dead. "Lisa!" I called out, my voice sounding small and insignificant against the hulking factory. "Lisa, are you here?" Only silence answered me. Taking a deep breath, I turned towards the factory entrance. The door hung askew on its hinges, as if someone or something had forced it open recently. I shone my flashlight inside, revealing a corridor strewn with debris and years of neglect. "Here goes nothing," I muttered, stepping inside. The air inside was thick with dust and the musty smell of abandonment. My footsteps echoed hollowly as I made my way deeper into the building, the beam of my flashlight revealing glimpses of old machinery and fallen ceiling tiles. And then I saw it, a series of deep gouges in the wall to my left. My breath caught in my throat as I moved closer, illuminating the marks fully. "Help us." The words were crudely scratched into the concrete, each letter jagged and desperate. I reached out, running my fingers over the grooves. They were fresh, the edges still sharp. "Lisa?" I called out again, my voice cracking. "Tom? Anyone?" A scuffling sound from deeper in the factory made me whirl around, my heart pounding. "Hello?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Is someone there?" For a moment there was nothing. Then faintly I heard what sounded like footsteps moving away from me. "Wait!" I shouted, starting to run. "Please, I'm here to help." I chased the sound through a maze of corridors and empty rooms, my flashlight beam bouncing wildly off walls and machinery. Just when I thought I'd lost the trail, I burst into what must have once been the main factory floor. My flashlight flickered, the beam weakening. No, 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 I muttered, smacking it against my palm. It sputtered back to life, and as I raised it, the blood froze in my veins. There, in the center of the room, stood a figure. It was turned away from me, but even in silhouette, I recognized that unruly hair, that familiar stance. "Jack?" I whispered, hardly daring to believe my eyes. The figure turned slowly, and I felt the world tilt beneath my feet. It was Jack's face, exactly as I remembered it, but wrong somehow. His eyes were too dark, his smile too wide. "Hello, Mike," Jack's voice said, but it wasn't Jack's voice, not really. It was colder, with an undercurrent of something that made my skin crawl. "I've been waiting for you." I took a step back, my mind reeling. "This isn't possible," I said. "You're dead. I saw you buried." The thing wearing Jack's face laughed, a hollow sound that echoed through the empty factory. "Oh, Mike," it said, taking a step towards me. "You have no idea what's possible." Suddenly a scream pierced the air, high, terrified, and heartbreakingly familiar. "Lisa!" I shouted, turning towards the sound. When I looked back, Jack, or whatever it was gone. But his laughter lingered, seeming to come from everywhere at once. "The game is just beginning, Mike." His voice echoed around me. "Are you ready to play?" Another scream, this time accompanied by a man's voice, Tom's voice, calling out in pain. I stood there, paralyzed by fear and indecision. To my left, a door suddenly slammed open. To my right, I heard the sound of running footsteps. And behind me, I could have sworn I felt cold breath on the back of my neck. In that moment, I realized that I had indeed descended into a nightmare. The factory around me felt alive, malevolent, watching my every move. My friends were here somewhere, scared and in pain, and something wearing the face of my dead best friend was orchestrating it all. As my flashlight finally gave out, plunging me into total darkness, one thought echoed through my mind. I'm no longer alone in here, and whatever is with me, it's not human. The game, as Jack had said, was just beginning. The darkness that had engulfed me moments ago suddenly gave way to a harsh, flickering light. I blinked rapidly, my eyes struggling to adjust. As my vision cleared, I found myself in a room that seemed to have materialized out of nowhere. The factory's decaying walls had been replaced by a space that looked like it had been ripped straight out of a 1980s sci-fi movie. Rows of old computers lined the walls, their bulky CRT monitors glowing with an eerie blue light. Each screen displayed a familiar sight, Jack's emails. The same messages that had started this nightmare were now multiplied across dozens of screens, creating a disorienting effect that made my head spin. "What the hell?" I muttered, taking a tentative step forward. The floor beneath me felt solid, but something about this room felt off, like it wasn't quite real. As I moved deeper into the room, I noticed that the emails on the screens were changing, cycling through all the messages we had received. Some I recognized, others were new to me. All of them bore Jack's signature style, his unique way of phrasing things that had always made him stand out. "Beautiful, isn't it?" a voice said from behind me. I spun around, my heart leaping into my throat. There, emerging from the shadows like a specter, was Jack. Or rather, something wearing Jack's face like a mask. Up close, the wrongness I had sensed earlier was even more apparent. The eyes were too dark, lacking the warmth and humor I had always associated with my friend. The smile was a cruel parody of Jack's easy grin. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice shaking despite my best efforts to stay calm. "What have you done with my friends?" The thing wearing Jack's face chuckled, the sound sending chills down my spine. "Oh, Mike, always so concerned about others. It's what I always liked about you. But don't you want to know what's really going on here?" It moved closer, its movements fluid yet somehow unnatural. I found myself backing away until I bumped into one of the computer desks. "You're not Jack," I said, gripping the edge of the desk to steady myself. "No, I'm not," it agreed, its smile widening impossibly. "But I'm wearing him quite well, don't you think?" It took some practice, but I think I've got his mannerisms down pat. My mind was reeling, struggling to process what I was seeing and hearing. I don't understand, I said. Why are you doing this? Where are Tom and Lisa? The creature, for I was now certain it wasn't human, tilted its head, regarding me with an almost curious expression. They're here somewhere. Pawns in a game they don't understand, just like you, Mike, just like Jack was. It turned away from me, walking over to one of the computers. Its fingers danced across the keyboard, and suddenly all the screens in the room changed. They now showed images and video clips. Memories, I realized with a start. Memories of Jack, of our friends, of moments I had almost forgotten. You see, Mike, the creature said, its voice taking on a lecturing tone. Your friend Jack made a deal a long time ago. A deal he didn't fully understand the implications of. What kind of deal? I asked, unable to tear my eyes away from the screens. The creature turned back to me, its eyes glinting with malice. A deal for power, of course. Isn't that what humans always want? Jack was ambitious, you see. He wanted to change the world, to make his mark. And I offered him a way to do that. My mind flashed back to our college days, to Jack's sudden rise in the tech world. The innovative ideas that had seemed to come out of nowhere. The string of successes that had made him a millionaire before he was 30. I started, the pieces starting to fall into place. You gave him those ideas? The creature's laugh was cold and mirthless. Oh, I gave him much more than that. I gave him a glimpse of what he could become. But you see, deals like this always come with a price. It moved closer again, and I found myself paralyzed, unable to back away. Jack tried to break our deal. It continued, its voice dropping to a near whisper. He thought he could outsmart me, thought he could protect his friends and keep the power for himself. The screens around us flickered, showing flashes of Jack in his final days. I saw him looking haggard, scared, frantically working on something I couldn't quite make out. What did you do to him? I asked, my voice barely audible. The creature's smile was terrible to behold. I collected what was owed to me. But Jack, clever Jack, he found a way to leave a trail. Those emails, they were his failsafe, his way of reaching out from beyond the grave to warn you all. My head was spinning, trying to process this insane revelation. But why involve us? Why not just take Jack and be done with it? The creature's eyes seemed to glow with an inner fire. Because, Mike, the game is so much more fun this way. Jack's soul is mine, yes, but his mind, his memories, those are the real prize. And to fully claim them, I need to break the connections he left behind. You, Tom, Lisa, you're all anchors holding pieces of Jack in this world. It leaned in close, its breath cold against my face. And now, I'm going to sever those connections, one by one. Horror washed over me as the full implications of its words sank in. You're going to kill us, I said, the words feeling leaden in my mouth. The creature's smile widened impossibly. Oh no, Mike. Death would be too simple, too quick. I'm going to break you, all of you. I'm going to twist your minds and souls until there's nothing left of the people Jack cared about. And then, when you're begging for the release of death, I'll wear your faces too. I felt something sharp press against my neck and glanced down to see a syringe in the creature's hand. When had it produced that? Don't worry, it said, its voice mockingly soothing. This is just the beginning. We have so much more to experience together. I tried to move, to fight, but my limbs felt like lead. The room started to spin around me, the screens blurring into a kaleidoscope of colors and images. Sweet dreams, Mike, the creature whispered, its voice seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. When you wake up, the real fun will begin. As darkness began to creep in at the edges of my vision, I caught one last glimpse of the screens. They showed Jack's face, the real Jack, not this monstrous imposter looking directly at me. His lips moved, forming words I couldn't hear but somehow understood. "I'm sorry," he seemed to say. "Please, save yourselves." Then the darkness claimed me entirely, and I fell into a void where nightmares and reality blurred into one terrifying whole. My last conscious thought was a desperate plea to whatever power might be listening. God help us all. Consciousness returned slowly, like wading through a thick fog. The first thing I became aware of was the cold, damp air against my skin. Then came the smell. Musty and stale, with an underlying hint of decay. I groaned, my head pounding as I forced my eyes open. Dim, flickering light revealed a scene straight out of a nightmare. I was lying on a concrete floor in what appeared to be a large cellar. Water dripped somewhere in the distance, the sound echoing ominously. But it wasn't the surroundings that made my breath catch in my throat. It was the familiar faces I saw around me. "Tom? Lisa?" I croaked, my voice hoarse. Tom's head snapped up at the sound of my voice. He was slumped against a wall, his clothes dirty and torn. "Mike, thank God you're awake. We were starting to worry." Lisa crawled over to me, her face pale and drawn. "How are you feeling?" "That thing, it did something to you. You've been out for hours." I sat up slowly, fighting a wave of nausea. As my vision cleared, I realized there were others in the cellar with us. I recognized Sarah, Jack's widow, huddled in a corner. And there, near a rusted metal door, was David, an old college friend I hadn't seen in years. "What's going on?" I asked, looking from face to face. "How did we all get here?" "We're trying to figure that out," Tom said, his voice tight with tension. "We've all got pieces of the puzzle, but nothing's making sense." Sarah spoke up, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's Jack. Something's wrong with Jack." I nodded grimly. "I know. I saw something wearing his face. But it wasn't him. It's not just that," David interjected. He looked older than I remembered, with streaks of gray in his hair. "We've been comparing notes. It seems like we're all connected to Jack in ways we never realized." Lisa nodded. "I thought I was the only one Jack helped through a tough time, but it turns out he was there for all of us at crucial moments in our lives. And now something's using those connections against us," Tom added. I struggled to my feet, leaning against the damp wall for support. "We need to get out of here. Has anyone tried the door?" David shook his head. "Locked tight, and even if we could open it, I don't think we'd get far. This place, it's not normal. I saw things out there that shouldn't be possible." Before I could ask what he meant, a crackling sound filled the cellar. We all looked up, searching for the source. A speaker I hadn't noticed before was mounted in one corner, ancient and rusted, but apparently still functional. "Hello, my friends." Jack's voice came through, distorted but unmistakable. It was Jack's tone, Jack's inflection, but there was something off about it. A coldness that had never been there before. "I hope you're enjoying your accommodations." "Jack?" Sarah called out, her voice breaking. "Jack, what's happening? Where are you?" A chuckle came through the speaker, the sound sending chills down my spine. "Oh, Sarah, sweet, naive Sarah. I'm everywhere and nowhere. But don't worry, we'll be reunited soon enough." "What do you want from us?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. "Want?" Jack's voice mused. "I want to play a game of riddles and revelations. Let's see how well you really knew your dear friend Jack." Suddenly the air seemed to thicken and I felt a pressure building in my head. Images flashed before my eyes, memories of Jack, but twisted and distorted. "First riddle," Jack's voice continued, sounding amused. "What burns and freezes, gives life, and takes it away, all in the pursuit of knowledge?" We looked at each other, confused and frightened. "What is this?" Lisa whispered. "Some kind of sick joke?" "Time's ticking," Jack sing-songed. "Get it wrong, and one of you goes for processing." The word processing sent a chill through me. I remembered the creature wearing Jack's face, its promise to break us all. Wait, David said suddenly. Burning and freezing. Life and death. Knowledge. It's passion. Jack always said his passion for science was both his greatest strength and his biggest weakness. There was a moment of tense silence. Then a slow clap came through the speaker. Well done, David. Always the clever one, weren't you? But can you save your friends from what comes next? Without warning, the door to the cellar burst open. 2 figures entered. They looked human at first glance, but their movements were jerky, unnatural. Their faces were blank, featureless. No, Sarah screamed as the figures grabbed her, dragging her towards the door. Please, no. We tried to stop them, but it was like fighting against statues. They were inhumanly strong, immovable. In moments, Sarah was gone, her screams echoing down the corridor outside before being abruptly cut off. Sarah! Tom yelled, pounding on the now closed door. Bring her back, you bastard! Jack's laughter filled the cellar. 1 down, 4 to go. Shall we continue our game? What followed was a nightmare of riddles and loss. With each question, the stakes grew higher. We racked our brains, trying to remember every detail of our time with Jack, every conversation, every shared moment. But it wasn't enough. One by one, they were taken. David, then Lisa, and finally Tom. Each time I was powerless to stop it, forced to watch as my friends were dragged away to some unknown fate. And then I was alone. The silence in the cellar was deafening. I slumped against the wall, exhausted and terrified. What was happening to my friends? What would happen to me? Well, well. Jack's voice came through the speaker again. And then there was one. I must say, Mike, I'm impressed you've lasted this long, but the game isn't over yet. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the voice. My hand pressed against the wall, and I felt something shift. Opening my eyes, I looked closer. One of the bricks was loose. Glancing at the speaker to make sure I wasn't being watched, I carefully worked the brick free. Behind it was a small cavity, and nestled inside was a USB drive. My heart raced as I pulled it out. Had the real Jack left this here? Was this the key to understanding what was happening? What's the matter, Mike? Jack's voice taunted. Cat got your tongue? Or have you finally realized the futility of your situation? I clutched the USB drive tightly, hope flaring in my chest for the first time since this nightmare began. I haven't given up yet, I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. And I won't. Not until I understand what's really going on here. The laughter that came through the speaker was cold and mirthless. Oh, Mike. Always the determined one. Very well. Let's see how long that determination lasts when you join your friends in processing. The door began to open, and I could hear heavy footsteps approaching. I quickly shoved the USB drive into my pocket, my mind racing. Whatever was on this drive, I knew it was important. I had to find a way to use it, to uncover the truth behind this twisted game. As the faceless figures entered the cellar, I steeled myself for what was to come. This wasn't the end, I told myself. It was just the beginning of a new chapter in this nightmare. And somehow, some way, I was going to find a way to save my friends and stop whatever monstrosity was wearing Jack's face. The last thing I saw before the figures grabbed me was the speaker in the corner. For just a moment I could have sworn I saw a flicker of the real Jack's face, his eyes filled with sorrow and regret. Then everything went dark, and I was dragged into the unknown, the weight of the USB drive in my pocket feeling like the last lifeline in a storm. The room they'd thrown me into was different from the damp cellar. Sterile white walls surrounded me, the air thick with the scent of disinfectant. In the corner stood a dated computer terminal, its screen flickering with a dull blue light. My heart raced as I approached it, the USB drive burning a hole in my pocket. Please work, I muttered, my hands shaking as I plugged the drive into the computer's port. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the screen came to life, a cascade of windows opening in rapid succession. My eyes darted across the display, trying to make sense of the flood of information. Oh my God, I breathed, as the truth began to unfold before me. The files on the drive were a mix of documents, images, and video clips. They told a story so incredible, so terrifying, that part of me wanted to believe it was all an elaborate hoax. But I knew, deep in my gut, that every word was true. The first document I opened was titled The Lazarus Protocol. It detailed the existence of a secret organization known as the Eternal Flame. Their mission statement chilled me to the bone: to transcend the boundaries of life and death, to offer second chances to those willing to pay the ultimate price. As I dug deeper, I uncovered the horrifying truth. The Eternal Flame wasn't just a group of misguided scientists or occultists. They were brokers of souls, dealing in the currency of human essence. They offered a chance at immortality, at reshaping reality itself. But the cost was beyond imagining. A video file caught my eye. With trembling fingers, I clicked play. Jack's face filled the screen. He looked haggard, his eyes sunken and haunted. "If you're watching this," he began, his voice hoarse, "then I've failed. I'm so sorry, Mike. I never meant for any of you to get involved in this." I leaned closer, drinking in every word. "I made a deal with them," Jack continued. "The Eternal Flame. They offered me knowledge, power, the ability to change the world. And God help me, I took it." He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "But I didn't understand the price. They don't just take your soul, Mike. They take everything. Your memories, your connections, the very essence of who you are." Jack's eyes filled with tears. I tried to back out when I realized the truth, but they don't let go easily. So I made another deal. My life for all of yours. I thought it would end with me. The pieces were falling into place now. The emails, the strange events, all of it was Jack's attempt to warn us, to prepare us for what was coming. "But I underestimated them," Jack's recording continued. "They're using my death, my sacrifice, to target all of you, to feed on the connections we shared." He leaned in close to the camera. "You have to stop them, Mike. The USB drive contains everything I managed to uncover about their operations, their weaknesses. Use it. Save our friends. And whatever you do, don't let them take your soul." The video ended, leaving me staring at my own reflection in the dark screen. I felt numb, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what I'd learned. But I couldn't afford to break down now. I turned back to the files, searching for anything that could help us escape, anything we could use against our captors. One document caught my eye: Project Doppelganger. As I read, my blood ran cold. The Eternal Flame had developed a way to create perfect replicas of people, soulless puppets that could be controlled by those who had given themselves over to the organization's power. "That's how they're wearing Jack's face," I realized aloud. "It's not really him at all." But the true horror was yet to come. As I delved deeper into the files, I uncovered the identity of the entity behind it all, the one pulling the strings of our nightmare. It wasn't Jack. It wasn't even human. The being called itself Erebus, an ancient consciousness that fed on human souls and experiences. The Eternal Flame was its creation, a means to cultivate and harvest the most potent human essences. "Jesus Christ," I whispered, my mind reeling from the revelation. A video file labeled Erebus Manifestation drew my attention. With a sense of dread, I clicked play. The footage showed a dark, swirling mass of energy, pulsing with an otherworldly light. As I watched, it began to take shape, forming into a humanoid figure. But its features were constantly shifting. One moment Jack, the next Sarah, then Tom, then me. "I am all and none," a voice echoed, seeming to come from everywhere at once. "I am the sum of every soul I've consumed, every life I've experienced. And soon, you will all be part of me." I slammed the laptop shut, my breath coming in short gasps. This was bigger than I could have imagined. We weren't just fighting for our lives. We were fighting for our very souls. As if on cue, an alarm began to blare. Red lights flashed in the corridor outside, and I could hear the pounding of feet approaching rapidly. "No, no, no," I muttered, frantically searching for a way out. But the room was sealed, no windows, no vents large enough to crawl through. The USB drive. I had to protect the information. Yanking it from the computer, I looked around desperately for a hiding place. My eyes fell on a small crack in the wall near the floor. Without hesitation, I shoved the drive into the crevice, praying it would remain hidden. Just as I straightened up, the door burst open. Two of the faceless figures entered, followed by the creature wearing Jack's face. Well, well, it said, its voice a cruel parody of my friend's. Doing some light reading, were we? I backed away, my mind racing. I had to find a way to use what I'd learned to fight back somehow. I know what you are, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Erebus. For a moment, surprise flickered across the false Jack's face. Then it smiled, a terrible, inhuman expression. Clever boy, it purred. Jack always said you were the smart one, but knowing my name won't save you. It gestured to the faceless figures. Take him to the others. It's time we began the final phase. As they grabbed me, I struggled, desperate to break free. You won't win, I shouted. We'll find a way to stop you. Erebus laughed, the sound echoing unnaturally in the small room. Oh, Mike, you still don't understand. You've already lost. Your souls are mine. It's only a matter of time before you accept it. They dragged me from the room, the alarms still blaring. But as terrified as I was, a small spark of hope burned in my chest. I had the information now. I knew what we were up against. Somehow, some way, I had to find a way to use that knowledge. To save my friends, to stop Erebus, and to put an end to the Eternal Flame's reign of terror. As they pulled me down the corridor towards whatever nightmarish fate awaited, I made a silent vow. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The truth had been unveiled, and with it came the possibility of victory. My heart pounded in my chest as I raced through the winding corridors, the cold weight of the USB drive clutched tightly in my sweaty palm. The blaring alarms echoed off the sterile walls, creating a disorienting cacophony that matched the chaos in my mind. I had no idea where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stop. Not now. Not when I finally had a chance to save my friends. I skidded around a corner, narrowly avoiding a collision with a cart full of ominous-looking medical equipment. The sight sent a chill down my spine, reminding me of the horrors that Erebus and the Eternal Flame were capable of. I pushed myself harder, ignoring the burning in my lungs and the trembling in my legs. As I turned another corner, I nearly collided with a set of double doors. They were different from the others I'd passed, heavier, with small reinforced windows set into them. Through the glass, I could see a large room filled with what looked like medical equipment. And there, in the center of it all, were my friends. Oh God, I whispered, my breath catching in my throat. Tom, Lisa, David, and the others were strapped to chairs, their heads lolling limply to the side. Various tubes and wires connected them to machines that blinked and whirred ominously, but it was their eyes that truly terrified me. Vacant, unfocused, as if the essence of who they were had been drained away. I tried the door handle, but it was locked. Panic threatened to overwhelm me, but I forced it down. I couldn't afford to lose it now. Not when they needed me. Looking around frantically, I spotted a fire extinguisher mounted on the wall nearby. Without hesitation, I grabbed it and smashed it against the door's lock with all my strength. Once, twice, 3 times. And finally, the lock gave way with a satisfying crunch. I burst into the room, my eyes darting from friend to friend, trying to decide who to free first. I settled on Tom, who was closest to the door. Tom, I hissed, shaking him gently as I worked to undo his restraints. Tom, can you hear me? We need to get out of here. For a moment, there was no response. Then, slowly, his eyes began to focus. Mike? He mumbled, his voice weak and confused. What's happening? No time to explain, I said, finally freeing him from the chair. We need to get the others and go. Now. As Tom struggled to his feet, I moved on to Lisa. One by one, I freed my friends, talking to them softly, urging them back to consciousness. It was like watching them wake from a deep sleep, or perhaps more accurately, from a nightmare. "What did they do to us?" David asked as I helped him up, his legs shaky beneath him. "They were trying to take your souls," I explained quickly, moving to free Sarah. "But we don't have time for details. We need to move before—" The sound of running footsteps in the hallway cut me off. My heart leaped into my throat as I realized we were out of time. "Everyone who can walk, help those who can't," I ordered, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "We're getting out of here." We stumbled out of the room, a ragged group of shell-shocked escapees. I took the lead, trying to remember the twists and turns I'd taken to get here. Behind us, I could hear shouts and the pounding of feet. They were getting closer. "This way," I called, gesturing towards a corridor that looked vaguely familiar. We rushed down it, our footsteps echoing off the walls. But as we turned the corner, my heart sank. A group of masked figures blocked our path, their featureless faces somehow radiating menace. "No," Lisa whimpered behind me. "No, please, not again." I stepped in front of the group, my mind racing. There had to be a way out of this. There had to be. The sharp crack of a gunshot split the air. One of the masked figures crumpled to the ground. Before I could process what was happening, another shot rang out, and then another. The remaining figures fell, revealing a figure standing behind them, gun raised. "Sarah?" I gasped, recognizing Jack's widow. She lowered the gun, her face a mask of determination. "I woke up before the others," she explained quickly. "Managed to get free and find this." She gestured with the gun. "Now come on, we don't have much time." We didn't need to be told twice. We followed Sarah as she led us through the complex, dispatching any threats we encountered with a cold efficiency that was both terrifying and reassuring. I couldn't help but wonder what she had gone through to become so proficient with a weapon. Finally, after what felt like hours of tense, heart-pounding flight, we burst through a set of doors and into the cool night air. The sudden shift from the sterile corridors to the outside world was jarring, but we didn't have time to adjust. "There," Sarah pointed to a parking lot nearby. "We need to get as far away from here as possible." As we rushed towards the vehicles, I couldn't shake the feeling that our escape had been too easy. Erebus, the being of immense power that had orchestrated all of this, surely wouldn't let us go without a fight. We piled into 2 cars, Sarah taking the wheel of one while I drove the other. As we peeled out of the parking lot, tires screeching, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The building we had escaped from looked ordinary from the outside, a nondescript office complex that gave no hint of the horrors within. "Where are we going?" Tom asked from the back seat, his voice still weak. I exchanged a look with Sarah in the car next to us. "Somewhere safe," I said, hoping I sounded more confident than I felt. "Somewhere we can regroup and figure out our next move." As we sped down the dark highway, putting distance between us and the nightmare we'd left behind, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. We had escaped, yes, but at what cost? And how long before Erebus and the Eternal Flame came for us again? The USB drive felt heavy in my pocket, a reminder of the knowledge we now possessed, and the responsibility that came with it. We had the truth now, but what were we supposed to do with it? As the first hints of dawn began to lighten the sky, I made a silent vow. We would find a way to stop Erebus. We would put an end to the Eternal Flame's twisted experiments, and somehow, we would make sure that Jack's sacrifice wasn't in vain. The road stretched out before us, leading to an uncertain future. But for now we were free. And that, I realized, was the first step towards victory. The forest was a blur of shadows and moonlight as we tore through the underbrush, branches whipping at our faces and roots threatening to trip us with every step. The sound of our pursuers echoed through the trees, growing closer with each passing moment. "Keep moving," I shouted, my voice hoarse with exertion. "We can't let them catch us." Sarah was just ahead of me, her face set in grim determination as she led our ragged group through the darkness. Tom and Lisa stumbled along behind, supporting each other as best they could. David brought up the rear, constantly glancing back at the encroaching threat. The USB drive felt like a lead weight in my pocket. The knowledge it contained both our greatest hope and our greatest burden. If we could just make it to safety, maybe we could use that information to put an end to this nightmare once and for all. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. As we crested a small hill, my foot caught on an exposed root. Time seemed to slow as I felt myself falling forward, arms windmilling uselessly. I hit the ground hard, the impact knocking the wind from my lungs. "Mike!" Lisa cried out, turning back to help me. As I struggled to my feet, I felt a sickening absence in my pocket. My hand flew to the spot where the USB drive had been, finding nothing but empty fabric. "No!" I gasped, scanning the ground frantically. "No, no, no!" In the dim moonlight, I caught a glint of metal. The drive had fallen from my pocket and was now teetering on the edge of a steep ravine. Without thinking, I lunged for it. My fingers brushed against the cold metal just as it slipped over the edge. I watched in horror as our last hope tumbled into the darkness below. "Mike, we have to go," Sarah urged, grabbing my arm. "There's no time." But it was already too late. As we turned to run, a figure emerged from the shadows ahead, blocking our path. It wore Jack's face, but the expression was all wrong. A twisted mockery of my friend's once warm smile. "End of the line, my friends," it said, its voice a chilling blend of Jack's familiar tones and something utterly inhuman. We backed away, huddling together as more figures emerged from the darkness surrounding us. I could feel the others trembling, their fear palpable in the cool night air. "What do you want from us?" Tom demanded, his voice cracking with exhaustion and terror. The thing wearing Jack's face chuckled, the sound sending shivers down my spine. "Want? Oh, Tom, I want everything. Your fears, your hopes, your very essence. But most of all, I want you to understand the futility of your struggle." As it spoke, its features began to shift and warp. Jack's face melted away, revealing something that defied description. A swirling mass of darkness and light, of familiar features and alien geometries. "Behold," it said, its voice now a cacophony of every person I'd ever known. "I am Erebus, the consumer of souls, the end of all things. And you, my dear friends, are about to become part of something greater than you could ever imagine." The air around us began to shimmer and distort. Reality itself seemed to bend and warp, the forest giving way to impossible landscapes that hurt the eyes to look upon. I could feel something tugging at the edges of my consciousness, trying to pull me apart at the seams. "No!" I shouted, gripping Sarah and Lisa's hands tightly. "We won't let you take us," Erebus laughed, the sound reverberating through multiple dimensions. "You don't have a choice, Mike. You never did. This game was rigged from the start." As the entity spoke, tendrils of darkness began to snake towards us, wrapping around our legs and arms. I could feel my thoughts becoming sluggish, memories slipping away like sand through an hourglass. "Fight it!" I yelled to the others even as I struggled against the encroaching oblivion. "Don't let it take you." But it was like trying to hold back the tide with our bare hands. One by one, I watched as my friends' eyes glazed over, their bodies going limp as Erebus began to consume their very essence. Just when all hope seemed lost, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. "That's enough, Erebus." We all turned, even the cosmic horror that was trying to devour us. There, shimmering like a mirage, stood Jack, the real Jack, his eyes filled with determination and sorrow. "Jack," Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face. Erebus snarled, its form writhing in apparent pain at Jack's presence. "Impossible. I consumed you, body and soul." Jack smiled sadly. "You took my body, yes, and most of my soul. But I held on to a piece, just enough to make one last stand." He turned to us, his form flickering like a candle in the wind. "I'm so sorry, all of you. I never meant for this to happen, but I can make it right. I can save you." "Jack, no!" I cried out, realizing what he was about to do. "There has to be another way." But Jack just shook his head. "This is the only way, Mike. My last gift to you all." Before any of us could stop him, Jack threw himself at Erebus, There was a blinding flash of light, a sound like reality itself tearing apart. And then, silence. When my vision cleared, Erebus was gone. The forest had returned to normal. The oppressive feeling of otherworldly horror dissipated like morning mist. We stood there, shell-shocked and exhausted, trying to process what had just happened. Sarah was the first to break the silence, her voice barely above a whisper. Is it over?" I looked around, half expecting Erebus to materialize again at any moment, but there was nothing but the quiet of the forest and the first hints of dawn peeking through the trees. "I think so," I said, hardly daring to believe it myself. Jack saved us." We huddled together, supporting each other as the adrenaline began to wear off and the full weight of our ordeal settled in. There were tears, half-hysterical laughter, and promises to never let each other go again. As the sun rose, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, we began the long walk back to civilization. We were battered, traumatized, and forever changed by what we'd experienced. But we were alive, we were free, and we carried with us the memory of Jack's final sacrifice, a reminder of the power of love, friendship, and the human spirit in the face of cosmic horror. As we emerged from the forest blinking in the bright morning light, I couldn't shake the feeling that our ordeal had changed more than just us. Somewhere out there, the USB drive lay hidden, waiting to be found. And with it, the truth about the eternal flame and the horrors that lurked just beyond the veil of our reality. Our battle might be over, but I knew in my heart that the war against the darkness was far from finished. And when the time came to take up arms once more, we would be ready. For Jack, for ourselves, and for all of humanity. The steady beep of a heart monitor slowly penetrated the fog of unconsciousness. I blinked, my eyes struggling to adjust to the harsh fluorescent lights above. The sterile smell of disinfectant filled my nostrils, a stark contrast to the earthy scent of the forest that still lingered in my memory. "Where?" I croaked, my throat dry and raw. A figure in a white coat leaned over me, her face coming into focus. "Mr. Thompson, can you hear me? You're in the hospital. You're safe now." Hospital. The word echoed in my mind, bringing with it a flood of confusing images. The chase through the woods, Erebus's terrifying form, Jack's sacrifice. Had it all been real, or just a vivid hallucination brought on by stress and exhaustion? "My friends," I managed to say, trying to sit up. "Where are my friends?" The doctor gently pushed me back down. "They're here too, Mr. Thompson. They're all safe. You've been through quite an ordeal." An ordeal. That was putting it mildly. But as I looked around the room, taking in the normalcy of the hospital setting, doubt began to creep in. How could what we experienced have been real? It defied all logic, all understanding of the world as I knew it. "How long have I been here?" I asked, noticing for the first time the stubble on my chin. 3 days, the doctor replied, checking something on my chart. "You were all found wandering on the outskirts of town, dehydrated and disoriented. Do you remember what happened?" I opened my mouth to respond, then closed it again. How could I possibly explain what we'd been through? Who would believe me? I'm not sure," I said finally. "It's all a blur." The doctor nodded sympathetically. "That's not uncommon with traumatic experiences. Give it time. Your memories may become clearer as you recover." As she turned to leave, she paused. "Oh, I almost forgot. This was left for you at the nurse's station." She handed me an envelope, and my heart skipped a beat as I recognized the handwriting on the front. It was Jack's. With trembling hands, I tore open the envelope and unfolded the letter inside. The paper felt warm, almost alive in my hands. "Dear Mike," it began. "If you're reading this, then it means our plan worked. You're safe. You're all safe. But I owe you an explanation for everything you've been through." I settled back against the pillows, my heart racing as I read on. The curse that bound us all began long before any of us were born. The eternal flame, Erebus, the deal I made. It was all part of a cycle that had been repeating for centuries. Souls trapped in an endless loop of sacrifice and rebirth, feeding an entity that existed beyond our understanding of reality. When I realized what I'd done by making that first deal, I knew I had to find a way to break the cycle. But Erebus was too powerful to confront directly. So I came up with a plan. A desperate, dangerous plan that required all of you. The emails, the chase, even your capture. It was all orchestrated to bring us together at the right moment. I needed Erebus to think it had won, to let its guard down just enough for me to strike. The USB drive was a decoy, Mike. The real information, the key to breaking the curse, was inside all of you. Every moment we shared, every connection we made, it was building towards that final confrontation in the woods. I'm so sorry for putting you all through this. If there had been any other way, I would have taken it. But in the end, it worked. The cycle is broken. Erebus is gone, its power scattered to the winds. You're free now, all of you. Free to live your lives without the shadow of this curse hanging over you. But be warned. The knowledge you've gained, the things you've seen, they'll stay with you. There may be those who will try to harness what's left of Erebus's power. Stay vigilant. Stay together. I wish I could be there to see the world you'll build now that you're free. Know that my sacrifice was worth it, to give you all a chance at a future unbound by cosmic horror. Take care of each other, and remember, some emails are better left unread. Your friend always, Jack. I let the letter fall to my lap, tears streaming down my face. It was real. All of it. The nightmare we'd lived through, the battles we'd fought. It hadn't been a dream or a hallucination. It had been our reality. A knock at the door startled me out of my thoughts. Sarah peeked in, her face pale but her eyes clear. "Mike, you're awake," she said, relief evident in her voice. She entered the room, followed by Tom, Lisa, and David. They all looked as I felt, exhausted, haunted, but alive. "Did you all—" I began, holding up the letter. They nodded, each pulling out similar envelopes. "Jack's final message," Tom said softly. "His explanation. His apology." "And his warning," Lisa added, her voice barely above a whisper. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything we'd been through settling over us like a heavy blanket. "So what now?" David asked finally. "Do we just go back to our lives? Pretend none of this ever happened?" I shook my head. "I don't think we can. Or should. Jack warned us to stay vigilant. There might be others out there who know about Erebus, about the power it wielded. We have a responsibility," Sarah said, her voice stronger now, "to protect others from what we went through, to make sure nothing like this ever happens again." As we talked, making plans and promises, I felt a strange itching sensation on my left arm. Pushing up my hospital gown sleeve, I gasped. There, etched into my skin like a tattoo, were strange symbols I'd never seen before. Yet somehow, I understood their meaning. "Guys," I said, interrupting the conversation, "look at this." They gathered around, each rolling up their own sleeves to reveal similar markings. "What are they?" Tom asked, tracing the symbols on his arm with a finger. "A reminder," I said, the knowledge coming to me as if I'd always known it. Of what we've been through, of what we've learned, and of the power we now carry. As we examined our new markings, a nurse entered the room. "Mr. Thompson, the doctor says you're clear to be discharged if you're feeling up to it." I looked at my friends, seeing in their eyes the same mix of fear and determination that I felt. "Yeah," I said, "I think we're ready to go." We gathered our belongings, such as they were, and made our way out of the hospital. As we stepped into the sunlight, I couldn't help but feel that we were walking into a new world. A world where the veil between reality and nightmare had been lifted, if only slightly. I looked down at the letter in my hand, Jack's final words echoing in my mind. Some emails are better left unread, I murmured. What was that? Sarah asked. I shook my head, tucking the letter into my pocket. Nothing. Just thinking about what comes next. As we walked away from the hospital, I knew that our lives would never be the same. We had faced cosmic horror and survived. We had been changed, marked by our experiences in ways both visible and invisible. But we were alive. We were together. And we were ready to face whatever came next, armed with the knowledge and power we'd gained through our ordeal. The sun shone brightly overhead, but I couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere in the shadows between reality and nightmare, something was stirring. Our battle might be over, but the war had only just begun. As I step out of Derry's diner, the neon sign flickers behind me like a dying firefly. It's well past midnight, and the streets are as empty as my wallet. Another shift, another handful of coins tossed my way by folks who think a smile is worth a nickel. I pull my threadbare jacket tighter around me, trying to ward off the October chill that seems to seep into my bones. See you tomorrow, Jake, Mabel, the night cook, calls out as she locks up. Her voice is as worn as the soles of my shoes. Yeah, see ya, I mutter, not bothering to look back. Tomorrow, next week, next year. It's all the same in this dead-end town. I start my trek home, if you can call that rat-infested apartment a home. The streetlights cast long shadows that seem to reach for me with gnarled fingers. I've walked this route 1,000 times, but tonight, something feels different. The air is thick with an expectation I can't quite name. As I round the corner onto Neibolt Street, the silence hits me like a physical force. This neighborhood's been abandoned for years, ever since the textile mill shut down. Houses stand like rotting teeth in a dead man's mouth, windows dark and accusing. That's when I hear it. At first I think it's just the wind playing tricks on me. But no, there it is again, the soft, lilting notes of a piano. The melody is faint, barely there, like a whisper from the grave. It's coming from somewhere up ahead, and against my better judgment, I find myself drawn towards it. Hello? I call out, my voice sounding weak and foolish in the oppressive quiet. No response, just the continuing piano notes, gaining strength with each step I take. The music leads me to a house at the end of the street. It's a Victorian monstrosity, all sagging gables and peeling paint. The kind of place that would have been grand once upon a time, but now looks like it's one stiff breeze away from collapsing. This is stupid, I mutter to myself, even as I move closer. There's no way anyone's living here, let alone playing a damn piano. But the music is undeniable now, a haunting melody that seems to curl around me like smoke. It's beautiful in a way that makes my chest ache, filled with a longing for something I can't quite name. I step onto the porch, wincing as the boards groan under my weight. The music stops abruptly, leaving a silence so profound it rings in my ears. Hello? I try again, louder this time. Is someone in there? I heard the piano. Nothing. Not a sound. Not a movement. Just the wind whistling through the cracks in the walls. I should leave. Every instinct is screaming at me to turn around and forget this whole thing. But something keeps me rooted to the spot. A curiosity that burns hotter than my fear. My hand reaches for the doorknob almost of its own accord. It's ice cold to the touch, and for a moment, I swear I feel it pulse, like a heart beating beneath my palm. This is how people die in horror movies, I mutter, but I'm already turning the knob. The door opens with a screech that sets my teeth on edge. The stench of mold and decay hits me like a slap to the face, and I have to fight the urge to gag. Hello? I call out one last time, my voice echoing in the empty foyer. Silence is my only answer. I pull out my phone, using its flashlight to illuminate the space around me. The beam cuts through the darkness, revealing peeling wallpaper and threadbare carpets. A thick layer of dust covers everything, undisturbed for what must be years. But there, in the corner of what must have been the parlor, sits a grand piano. Unlike everything else in the house, it seems untouched by time. Its surface gleams in the light from my phone, not a speck of dust to be seen. "What the hell?" I whisper, approaching it cautiously. As I get closer, I can see that the keys are pristine, almost glowing in the dim light. I reach out, my fingers hovering just above them. The air around the piano feels different, charged somehow, like the moment before a lightning strike. Just as I'm about to touch a key, a loud crash from behind makes me jump. I spin around, heart pounding, to see a vase shattered on the floor. "Who's there?" I shout, my voice cracking with fear. And then, as if in response, the piano begins to play. The keys depress on their own, a frantic, discordant melody that seems to shake the very foundations of the house. I stumble backward, tripping over my own feet in my haste to get away. I scramble towards the door, but it slams shut with a force that rattles the windows. The music grows louder, more insistent, filling my head until I can't think, can't breathe. "Let me out!" I scream, pounding on the door, but my voice is lost in the cacophony of sound. The room begins to shift and warp around me, the walls pulsing in time with the mad rhythm. I sink to my knees, covering my ears, but it does nothing to block out the sound. As the world dissolves into a swirl of music and madness, one thought burns bright in my mind. I should have just gone home. The door groans in protest as I push it open, the sound of metal grinding against metal setting my teeth on edge. I wince, half expecting the noise to wake whatever spirits might be lurking in this forsaken place. But the house remains silent, save for the faint whisper of dust settling in my wake. "Hello?" I call out, my voice barely above a whisper. "Is anyone here?" Silence answers me, thick and oppressive. I fumble for my phone, cursing under my breath as I struggle to turn on the flashlight. When it finally flickers to life, the beam cuts through the darkness like a knife, revealing a room frozen in time. The flashlight's glow dances across faded wallpaper, peeling in long strips that curl like dead leaves. Dust motes swirl in the air, disturbed by my presence after who knows how many years of stillness. They glitter in the light, almost beautiful if not for the eerie context. "Jesus," I mutter, sweeping the beam across the room. "What is this place?" My light catches on various objects. A moth-eaten armchair, its stuffing spilling out like entrails. A cracked mirror that reflects my pale, frightened face. A bookshelf laden with tomes whose titles have long since faded into obscurity. And there, in the far corner of the room, stands the piano. It's an old upright model, the kind you might see in a saloon in an old Western film. Unlike everything else in the room, it seems relatively untouched by time. No cobwebs drape its frame, no dust dulls its surface. In the beam of my flashlight, it gleams with an unnatural sheen. I approach it cautiously, drawn by a curiosity I can't quite explain. "This doesn't make any sense," I say to myself, running a finger along the top of the piano. It comes away clean, no trace of the dust that covers every other surface in the room. The keys are pristine, ivory white and ebony black, not a chip or crack in sight. It's as if the piano has been waiting, preserved in this decaying room, for someone to come and play it. But who? And why here? I wonder aloud, my voice sounding unnaturally loud in the stillness. I reach out, my fingers hovering just above the keys. The air around the piano feels charged, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. My heart pounds in my chest, a voice in the back of my mind screaming at me to turn and run. But I can't. Something holds me here, a compulsion I can't fight. My fingers are a hair's breadth from touching the keys when it happens. The first note rings out, clear and pure, startling me so badly I nearly fall backward. I jerk my hand away, but the piano continues to play. The keys depress on their own, a haunting melody filling the room. "What the hell?" I gasp, stumbling back. "This isn't possible." But it is happening right before my eyes. The tune is unlike anything I've ever heard before, beautiful and terrible all at once. It speaks of longing, of loss, of a sadness so profound it makes my chest ache. I back away, my mind reeling. This can't be real. I must be dreaming, or maybe I hit my head when I came in. Maybe I'm lying unconscious on the floor and this is all some bizarre hallucination. But the music follows me, growing louder with each step I take. It fills the room, seems to seep into the very walls. I can feel it in my bones, thrumming through my body like a second heartbeat. "Stop!" I shout, pressing my hands over my ears, but it does nothing to block out the sound. If anything, it seems to grow louder, more insistent. I spin around, intent on fleeing this madhouse, but in my panic, I lose my footing. My hip catches on something, a small table, perhaps, and I hear the distinctive sound of shattering porcelain. The crash echoes through the house, momentarily drowning out the piano's melody. I look down to see the remains of what must have been an expensive vase scattered across the floor. For a moment, everything goes silent. The piano stops its ghostly performance, and the quiet that follows is so absolute it makes my ears ring. Then, from somewhere deep within the house, I hear a sound that turns my blood to ice. It's a voice, barely more than a whisper, but unmistakable in the silence. "Who's there?" it calls, the words distorted as if coming from very far away, or perhaps underwater. I open my mouth to respond, but no sound comes out. My throat has closed up in terror, my body frozen in place. The voice comes again, louder this time. "I can hear you breathing. Come out, wherever you are." The sing-song tone sends shivers down my spine. I need to leave now before whatever owns that voice finds me. But my legs won't move, my body refusing to obey my panicked mind's commands. And then, as if things couldn't get any worse, the piano starts up again. This time the melody is different, faster, more frantic. It pounds through the air, each note feeling like a physical blow. "No," I manage to croak out. "Please stop." But the music only grows louder, and now I can hear other sounds joining in. The creak of floorboards, the rattle of windows, the groan of shifting walls. The entire house seems to be coming alive around me. "Welcome," the voice whispers, now sounding as if it's right next to my ear. "We've been waiting for you." I whirl around, but there's no one there. Just the empty room, the shattered vase, and the piano playing its maddening tune. "This isn't real," I say, trying to convince myself. "This can't be happening." But as the music swells to a crescendo, the voice laughing manically in my ears, I know with a bone-deep certainty that this is all too real. I've stepped into something beyond my understanding, beyond the rational world I thought I knew. And as the house groans and shifts around me, as the piano plays on and on, I realize with growing horror that I may never find my way back out of this abyss. The instant I decide to flee, the house seems to sense my intention. I spin on my heel, ready to bolt for the exit, my heart pounding in my chest like a trapped bird. But before I can take a single step, the door slams shut with a resounding bang that shakes dust from the ceiling. "No!" I shout, lunging for the handle. It's ice cold beneath my fingers, and no matter how hard I twist and pull, it won't budge. This isn't happening. This can't be happening. Behind me, the piano's melody shifts, growing louder and more frantic. The notes chase each other in a dizzying crescendo, as if feeding off my rising panic. Each chord strikes like a physical blow, making me flinch and cower. "Let me out!" I scream, pounding my fists against the unyielding wood of the door. "Somebody help me, please." But my cries for help are swallowed by the music, drowned out by the cacophony that fills the room. The melody has become a living thing, writhing and twisting in the air around me. I can feel it pressing against my skin, trying to burrow its way inside my head. "Stop it!" I yell, spinning to face the piano. "Just stop!" The keys continue to move of their own accord, hammering out their maddening tune, and now, to my horror, I see the room beginning to change. The walls seem to pulse and breathe, expanding and contracting in time with the music. The faded wallpaper ripples like water, patterns swirling and morphing into faces that leer at me with hollow eyes. "This isn't real," I mutter, pressing my palms against my eyes. "It's not real. It's not real." But when I lower my hands, the nightmarish scene remains. The floor beneath my feet has begun to undulate, rising and falling like the deck of a ship in a storm. The ceiling stretches upward, seeming miles high one moment and pressing down on me the next. Reality itself is bending to the rhythm of the song, twisting into impossible shapes that my mind struggles to comprehend. I stagger backward, my back hitting the door. "What's happening?" I gasp, my voice barely audible over the thunderous music. "What is this place?" As if in answer, the piano's melody shifts again. The frantic pace slows, becoming something darker and more ominous. Each note resonates through my body, making my bones vibrate and my teeth ache. I can feel the music trying to sync with my heartbeat, attempting to rewrite the very rhythm of my existence. "No," I moan, sliding down the door until I'm sitting on the writhing floor. "Please, no more." But the music shows no mercy. It builds and builds, layers of sound piling on top of each other until I think my head will explode from the pressure. The room spins around me, colors bleeding into one another, shapes distorting beyond recognition. I clamp my hands over my ears, but it does nothing to block out the sound. If anything, it seems louder, as if the music has bypassed my ears entirely and is playing directly inside my skull. "Make it stop," I whimper, rocking back and forth. "Someone make it stop." But there's no one to hear me, no one to help. I'm alone in this nightmare, trapped in a reality that no longer makes sense. The music pounds through me, threatening to tear my sanity apart note by note. I don't know how long I sit there, curled into a ball with my hands pressed futilely against my ears. Time has lost all meaning in this place. It could be minutes or hours or days. The music goes on, an endless symphony of madness. Just when I think I can't take any more, when I'm certain my mind will shatter under the relentless assault, something changes. The melody shifts once more, becoming softer, almost soothing. The chaotic swirl of the room slows, colors and shapes gradually settling back into place. Cautiously, I lower my hands from my ears. The music is still there, but it's different now. Instead of an attack, it feels almost inviting. "What?" I croak, my throat raw from screaming. "What's happening now?" As if in response, a figure begins to coalesce in front of the piano. At first, it's just a vague, shimmering outline, but as I watch, it solidifies into the form of a man. He's tall and thin, dressed in an old-fashioned suit that might have been elegant once but now hangs in tatters from his spectral frame. The ghost, for what else could it be, turns to face me, and I have to bite back a scream. Where its eyes should be are just empty sockets, black and bottomless. Yet somehow, I know it's looking right at me. "Welcome," the ghost says, its voice the same whisper I heard earlier, echoing as if coming from a great distance. "We've been waiting for you for a very long time." I scramble to my feet, pressing myself against the door. What are you?" I manage to ask, my voice shaking. "What is this place?" The ghost's lipless mouth stretches into what might be a smile. "I am the composer," it says, "and this is my masterpiece." It gestures around the room with a skeletal hand. "For decades I've been trapped here, bound to this house, to this piano, waiting for someone to hear my song, to join my orchestra. I don't understand," I say, shaking my head. "I just wanted to leave. I didn't mean to disturb anything." The ghost's laugh is like the rattling of dry bones. "Oh, but you did disturb something, my dear. You awakened the music. And now you're a part of it." As if to emphasize its point, the piano begins to play again, a haunting melody that seems to wrap around me like chains. "No," I say, shaking my head violently. "No, I won't be a part of this. Let me go." But the ghost just continues to smile its terrible smile. "I'm afraid it's too late for that. The song has chosen you, but don't worry. Soon, you'll understand. Soon, you'll hear the beauty in the madness." As the ghost speaks, I feel the music changing again, becoming something complex and alluring. Despite my fear, I find myself drawn to it, wanting to understand its intricate patterns. "That's it," the ghost whispers encouragingly. "Listen. Really listen. Do you hear it? The symphony of the spheres, the music of the universe itself. And God help me, I do hear it. Underneath the surface melody, there's something vast and incomprehensible. It terrifies me, but it fascinates me too. I want to run, to escape, but I also want to stay and unravel this musical mystery." "What do you want from me?" I ask, my voice barely audible over the swelling music. The ghost glides closer, its empty eye sockets boring into me. "I want you to play," it says simply. "I want you to become part of the eternal concert. But first you must learn." As it speaks, the piano's lid opens of its own accord, revealing the strings and hammers within. They vibrate with an otherworldly energy, pulsing in time with the ghostly melody. "Come," the ghost says, extending a spectral hand toward me. "Sit. Let the music in. Let it reshape you, as it reshaped me so long ago." I know I should refuse. I know I should fight. Should try to find a way out of this nightmare. But the music has me in its grasp now, its siren song irresistible. With trembling legs, I take a step toward the piano, then another, and another. "That's it," the ghost encourages. "Embrace your destiny. Become one with the song." As I sink onto the piano bench, I feel the last vestiges of my old reality slipping away. The ghost was right. I'm part of something bigger now, something I don't understand but desperately want to. My fingers hover over the keys, trembling with anticipation. The ghost leans in close, its cold presence sending shivers down my spine. "Play," it whispers. "Play, and never stop." And as my fingers touch the keys, as the first notes of an impossible melody ring out, I know that my old life is over. For better or worse, I've been consumed by the abyss. The eternal concert has begun. As the room continues to pulsate with otherworldly energy, I find myself locked in a staring contest with the ghostly figure at the piano. His hollow eyes, devoid of any semblance of life, seem to bore straight into my soul. I want to look away, but I'm trapped by his gaze, unable to move or even blink. What are you?" I manage to croak out, my voice barely above a whisper. The specter's mouth twists into what might be a smile, though it's hard to tell on his translucent features. "I am the composer," he says, his voice echoing as if coming from the bottom of a well. "And you, my dear, are my newest pupil." I shake my head, trying to clear the fog that seems to have settled over my mind. "I don't understand. I just want to leave. Please, let me go." The composer chuckles, a sound like dry leaves rustling in the wind. "Oh, but you can't leave. Not yet. Not until you've heard my story. Not until you've learned to play." As he speaks, the piano begins to play again, a soft, melancholic tune that seems to wrap around me like a shroud. I feel myself being drawn in, my fear slowly giving way to a morbid curiosity. "What story?" I ask, despite myself. "What do you mean, learn to play?" The ghost glides closer, his form shimmering in the dim light. "It all began decades ago," he says, his voice taking on a dreamy quality. "I was a promising young composer full of ambition and talent, but I wanted more. I wanted to create a piece of music that would change the world, that would live on forever." As he speaks, the room around us begins to shift and change. The decaying walls fade away, replaced by the image of a bustling city street from another era. I see a young man, clearly the living version of the ghost before me, striding purposefully down the sidewalk. I search for inspiration everywhere, the composer continues. In the laughter of children, in the roar of machines, in the whispers of lovers. But nothing was enough. Nothing could capture the sound I heard in my dreams. The scene changes again, showing the young composer hunched over a piano, his face gaunt and his eyes wild. I became obsessed, the ghost says, his voice filled with a mixture of pride and regret. I stopped eating, stopped sleeping. All that mattered was the music. I watch, transfixed, as the young man scribbles furiously on sheet music, his fingers flying over the piano keys. And then one night, I found it, the composer whispers. The perfect melody, the song that would make me immortal. The scene shifts once more, and I see the composer playing his masterpiece for the first time. The music is beautiful, haunting, unlike anything I've ever heard before. But as he plays, something strange begins to happen. The air around him shimmers and warps, reality itself seeming to bend to the rhythm of the song. I didn't understand what I had done, the ghost says, his voice heavy with sorrow. I had tapped into something beyond human comprehension. The music, it was alive, and it was hungry. I watch in horror as the young composer's fingers begin to blur, merging with the piano keys. His body starts to fade, becoming translucent as the music grows louder and more frantic. The melody consumed me, the composer says. It trapped me here, in this house, bound to the piano for all eternity. But it wasn't satisfied with just one soul. It wanted more. It needed more. The visions fade, and I find myself back in the decaying room, face to face with the ghostly composer. For years I've been waiting, he says, waiting for someone who could hear the music, who could learn to play it, someone who could set me free. I shake my head, trying to process everything I've heard. But why me? I ask. I'm not a musician, I can't help you. The ghost's smile widens, revealing teeth that seem too sharp, too numerous. Oh, but you can, he says. You heard the music when no one else could. You have the potential. All you need to do is learn to play my composition perfectly and you'll be free. We'll both be free. As he speaks, I feel the music's pull growing stronger. It's in my head now, a constant melody that drowns out all other thoughts. Part of me wants to run to fight against this madness. But another part, a part that's growing stronger by the second, wants to stay, wants to learn, wants to play. What happens if I refuse? I ask, already knowing the answer. The composer's face darkens, the hollow pits of his eyes seeming to grow deeper. Then you'll join the others, he says, gesturing to the shadows around the room. For the first time I notice movement in the darkness, ghostly figures, barely visible, swaying to the endless melody. Those who couldn't learn, who couldn't play, they're part of the music now forever. I swallow hard, my mouth suddenly dry. And if I agree? If I learn to play? The ghost's smile returns, triumphant. Then you'll have the power to leave this place, to take the music with you into the world, to share its beauty and its hunger. As he speaks, the piano lid opens on its own, revealing the keys that seem to glow with an inner light. The music swells, filling the room with its haunting melody. What do you say? The composer asks, extending a spectral hand towards me. Are you ready to begin your lessons? I look at the outstretched hand, then at the piano, its keys beckoning me. The rational part of my mind screams at me to refuse, to keep fighting. But the music, oh, the music. It's inside me now, a part of me, and I want more. With a trembling hand, I reach out and grasp the composer's cold, ethereal fingers. Yes, I whisper, sealing my fate. Teach me. The ghost's laughter echoes through the room, mingling with the ever-present melody. As I take my place at the piano, I feel reality shifting around me once more. The decaying room fades away, replaced by an endless expanse of musical notation, stretching as far as the eye can see. Let us begin, the composer says, his voice now coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. Listen closely. Feel the music in your very bones. For this composition is not just played with your hands, but with your entire being. As my fingers touch the keys, I feel a jolt of energy course through me. The first notes ring out pure and perfect. and I know that I've taken the first step on a journey from which there may be no return. The lesson has begun, and with it, my transformation into something both more and less than human. Time loses all meaning as I sit at the piano, my fingers dancing across the keys in an endless dance. Days, maybe weeks, blend together in a haze of music and madness. The ghost of the composer is a constant presence hovering over my shoulder, his hollow eyes never leaving my hands. Again, he commands, his voice a mixture of excitement and frustration. From the beginning, feel the music, don't just play it. I nod, exhausted beyond measure but unable to stop. My fingers, once clumsy and uncertain, now move with growing confidence. The melody that once seemed impossible now flows from me, albeit imperfectly. I'm trying, I mutter, starting the piece again. It's just so complex. The composer scoffs, a sound like wind whistling through a graveyard. Complex? This is but the first movement, child. You've barely scratched the surface of its true depths. As I play, I feel the house responding to the music. The walls seem to breathe, expanding and contracting in time with the rhythm. The floorboards creak and groan, adding their own accompaniment to my playing. It's as if the entire structure is alive, pulsing with the beat of this otherworldly symphony. Do you feel it? The composer whispers, his cold breath tickling my ear. The power in the notes? The way reality itself bends to the will of the music? I do feel it, and it terrifies me as much as it exhilarates me. With each passing hour, each repetition of the melody, I sense something changing within me. The music is no longer just sound. It's become a tangible force, flowing through my veins like quicksilver. What's happening to me? I ask during a rare moment of rest, my fingers aching and my mind reeling. The composer's lipless mouth stretches into a grin. You're becoming one with the music, my dear, embracing your true potential. As if to emphasize his point, I hear whispers emanating from the piano. Soft voices barely audible beneath the melody, promising power beyond my wildest dreams if I just give myself fully to the music. Ignore them, I mutter to myself, shaking my head. Focus on the notes. But the whispers grow louder with each passing day, more insistent. They speak of the ability to bend reality, to reshape the world according to my will. All I need to do is surrender completely to the melody. The composer notices my distraction. You hear them, don't you? He asks, a note of excitement in his ethereal voice. The promises of the music? I nod reluctantly. What are they? Are they real? His laugh echoes through the room, setting the dust motes dancing. Oh, they're real, my student. More real than anything you've known before. But they come with a price, everything does. Before I can ask what he means, he gestures impatiently to the piano. Enough talk. Play. You're close to a breakthrough, I can feel it. I turn back to the keys, my fingers finding their positions automatically. As I begin to play, I notice something that sends a chill down my spine. My reflection in the polished surface of the piano is different, faded somehow, as if I'm becoming as insubstantial as the composer himself. What's happening to me? I gasp, my fingers faltering on the keys. The composer's hand clamps down on my shoulder, his touch icy cold. Don't stop, he hisses. You're so close. Push through it. Terrified but unable to disobey, I continue playing. The melody swells around me, filling the room with its haunting beauty. And as I play, I feel myself changing. It's as if pieces of me are being stripped away with each note replaced by pure music. That's it, the composer croons, his voice thick with triumph. Let the music in. Become one with it. I want to resist, to pull away from the piano and run, but I can't. The music has me in its grasp now as surely as if I were bound with chains. So I play on, watching with a mixture of horror and fascination as my reflection grows fainter and fainter. Hours pass, or maybe days. Time has no meaning in this place. I play until my fingers bleed, until the keys are slick with crimson. But still, the composer pushes me on. More, he demands, his form seeming to grow larger, more substantial with each passing moment. You're almost there. I can taste freedom. And then, just when I think I can't go on any longer, something shifts. The music changes, becoming something deeper, more primal. It's as if I can hear the very heartbeat of the universe in the notes. Yes, the composer exults. You've done it. The second movement begins. As the new melody pours from my fingers, I feel a surge of power unlike anything I've ever experienced. The walls of the house ripple like water, reality itself bending to the will of the music. For a moment, I glimpse other worlds, other dimensions, all pulsing in time with my playing. What is this? I gasp, my voice barely audible over the thunderous music. The composer's laugh is full of dark joy. This, my dear student, is true power, the ability to reshape reality itself through music. And it's only the beginning. As I continue to play, lost in the intoxicating rush of power, I catch a glimpse of myself in the piano's surface. My reflection is barely visible now, little more than a ghostly outline. But my eyes glow with an inner fire, burning with the knowledge and power of the music. What have I become? I whisper, but the words are lost in the swelling symphony. The composer leans in close, his hollow eyes boring into mine. You've become what you were always meant to be, he says, a conduit for the music, a master of reality itself. And as the second movement reaches its crescendo, as the house shakes and reality trembles around us, I realize that I've crossed a line from which there may be no return. I am no longer just a player of the music. I have become the music itself. The lesson continues, the notes flowing endlessly from my fingers. But now, with each chord, with each melody, I feel myself slipping further away from humanity and deeper into the realm of pure sound and infinite possibility. What began as a simple curiosity has become an all-consuming obsession. And as I play on, my reflection fading to nothing in the piano's gleaming surface, I wonder if I'll ever find my way back to the person I once was. Or if, like the composer before me, I'm doomed to become just another ghost in this house of endless melody. The endless melody finally pauses, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. My fingers, raw and bleeding, hover uncertainly over the keys. For the first time in what feels like an eternity, I can hear something other than the music, a faint scratching sound coming from somewhere behind the walls. What is that? I whisper, more to myself than to the composer's ghost who hovers nearby with an unreadable expression. Ignore it, he hisses, his hollow eyes narrowing. Focus on the music. You're so close. But curiosity, that damnable human trait that led me into this nightmare in the first place, won't let me rest. I rise from the piano bench on shaky legs, my muscles protesting after countless hours of stillness. I said ignore it, the composer shouts, his spectral form flickering with rage. I pay him no heed, drawn inexorably towards the source of the sound. My eyes, adjusted to the gloom, catch sight of a loose panel in the wall. Without thinking, I reach out and pry it open. The stench that assaults me is overwhelming, decay and despair given physical form. I stumble back, gagging, but not before I catch a glimpse of what lies beyond. A hidden room, dimly lit by an otherworldly glow, stretches out before me. And within, a sight that will haunt me for whatever remains of my life. Rows upon rows of withered husks, barely recognizable as human. Their desiccated forms are contorted in poses of agony, frozen in their final moments. Oh God, I choke out, bile rising in my throat. What is this? The composer's cold laugh echoes through the room. Did you think you were the first? He asks, his voice dripping with dark amusement. The only one to hear the music? To be drawn into its embrace? As he speaks, the air around the corpses begins to shimmer. Spectral forms rise from the husks, translucent and glowing with the same eerie light as the composer. Their faces are masks of suffering, mouths open in silent screams. One of the spirits, a woman with long, flowing hair, floats towards me. Her eyes, though insubstantial, are filled with a pain that transcends death. "Help us," she pleads, her voice a whisper on the edge of hearing. "Free us from this prison." The other spirits take up the cry, their voices blending into a cacophony of desperation. "Free us! Play the song! Break the curse!" I spin to face the composer, horror and rage warring within me. "You lied to me," I accuse. "This isn't about my freedom or yours. It's about them." The ghost's smile is a terrible thing to behold. "I never lied," he says smoothly. "I merely omitted certain truths. Yes, you play for your freedom, and mine, and theirs. We're all bound by the music, all part of the grand symphony." "You're a monster," I spit, backing away from him. His laugh chills me to my core. "Perhaps, but I'm a monster of my own creation, as you will be of yours. The choice was always yours, my dear student, to play or not to play, to embrace the music or to resist it." The spirits press closer, their ethereal forms passing through me, leaving trails of icy cold in their wake. Their pleas grow more frantic, more desperate. "Please," the woman with the flowing hair begs. "We've been trapped here for so long. Only the completion of the symphony can set us free." I look from the spirits to the composer and back again, my mind reeling. "But if I play, if I complete the symphony, what happens to me? Do I become like you?" I ask the composer. "Or like them?" His smile widens, revealing too many teeth. "That, my dear, depends entirely on your skill, on your willingness to give yourself fully to the music. Succeed, and you'll transcend, become a being of pure sound and infinite possibility. Fail." He gestures to the room of withered husks, and I shudder. "It's not fair," I protest weakly. "I never asked for this." "Fair?" the composer scoffs. "What has fairness to do with art? With true creation? The greatest works are born of suffering, of sacrifice. And this is the greatest work of all." The spirits continue to swirl around me, their voices a constant susurration of pleas and demands. I close my eyes, trying to block them out, but their cries echo in my mind. I need to think," I stammer, stumbling back towards the piano. The composer's eyes gleam with a mixture of pride and malice as I retake my seat at the instrument. "Take all the time you need," he purrs. "But remember, the music waits for no one. It hungers always." As my fingers touch the keys, the spirits fall silent, watching with a desperate hope that's almost palpable. I can feel the weight of their expectations, their years of suffering, pressing down on me. I begin to play, the melody flowing from my fingers with a life of its own. But now each note carries new meaning. I'm not just playing for my own freedom anymore, or even for the composer's twisted ambitions. I'm playing for them, the lost souls trapped in this musical purgatory. The music swells, filling the room with its haunting beauty. The spirits sway to the rhythm, their forms becoming more substantial with each passing measure. "Yes," the composer hisses, his own form seeming to pulse with energy. "Let it flow through you. Embrace the power. Set us all free." As I play, I can feel the boundaries of reality blurring. The walls of the room fade away, replaced by swirling vortexes of color and sound. The spirits dance around me, their faces transforming from agony to ecstasy as the music builds to a crescendo. But with each note, I can feel myself changing too. My reflection in the piano surface, already faded, begins to blur at the edges. It's as if I'm being slowly erased, consumed by the very music I'm creating. "What's happening to me?" I gasp, my fingers never faltering on the keys. The composer's laugh is triumphant. "You're becoming one with the music," he exults, "transcending your mortal form. Soon you'll be free of all earthly constraints." Part of me wants to stop, to pull away from the piano and run. But I can't. The music has me in its grasp, as surely as it holds the spirits that swirl around me. And deep down, in a place I'm afraid to acknowledge, I don't want to stop. The power flowing through me is intoxicating, addictive. So I play on, watching with a mixture of fascination and horror as my body becomes more insubstantial with each passing moment. The spirit's cries of joy and relief blend with the music, creating a symphony unlike anything ever heard on Earth. As the piece nears its completion, I realize that I'm standing at a crossroads. With these final notes, I'll either ascend to some higher plane of existence or join the ranks of withered husks in the hidden room. There's no middle ground, no turning back. My fingers hover over the keys for a split second as I make my choice. Then, with a deep breath, I launch into the final movement. The world explodes into light and sound, reality itself bending to the will of the music. And as the last note fades away, I feel myself slipping free of my mortal coil, becoming one with the eternal symphony. The lesson is complete. The prisoners are free. The final notes of the composition hang in the air, vibrating with an otherworldly resonance. My fingers, bloody and raw, tremble above the keys as I realize what I've just accomplished. After countless attempts, failures, and moments of near madness, I've finally played through the entire piece. I did it, I whisper, my voice hoarse from disuse. The composer's ghost materializes beside me, his face a mask of rapturous joy. Yes, he cries, his voice echoing through the room. You've done it. The first movement is complete. As if in response to his words, the house begins to shudder and groan. The melody I've just played seems to reverberate through its very foundation, causing the walls to ripple like water and the floorboards to undulate beneath my feet. What's happening? I ask, gripping the edge of the piano for support as the room sways around me. The composer's laugh is triumphant and terrifying. The house is awakening, he explains, his form beginning to shimmer and fade. It's becoming one with the music just as you are. I watch in a mixture of fascination and horror as the ghost's spectral body starts to dissipate. His edges blur, wisps of his form trailing away like smoke in the wind. But rather than look frightened or upset, his face is a picture of pure ecstasy. At last, he sighs, his voice growing fainter with each word. Freedom, transcendence, the true power of the music revealed. Wait, I call out, reaching for him even as he fades from view. What do you mean? What's going to happen now? But the composer is gone, leaving behind only a lingering echo of his final joyous laugh. For a moment, I sit in stunned silence, trying to process what's just occurred. Is it over? Have I fulfilled my part in this madness and earned my freedom? My relief is short-lived. A strange creaking sound draws my attention back to the piano. To my horror, I see the keys beginning to shift and change. They melt like wax under an intense heat, losing their familiar rectangular shapes. As I watch, unable to look away, they reform into grotesque organic forms, twisting tendrils, gaping maws, writhing tentacles. No, I breathe, pushing away from the piano. No, this can't be happening. But it is happening, right before my eyes. The once beautiful instrument is transforming into something monstrous, something alive. And as it changes, I feel a pull deep in my chest, an irresistible urge to place my hands on these new alien keys. With dawning terror, I realize the truth of my situation. This isn't the end, is it? I ask the empty room, my voice shaking. It's only the beginning. As if in answer, the twisted keys of the piano begin to pulse with an inner light. A new melody starts to play, faint at first, but growing stronger with each passing second. It's unlike anything I've heard before, discordant yet hypnotic, beautiful yet terrifying. I try to back away, to put some distance between myself and the transformed piano, but my body won't obey. Instead, I find myself drawn inexorably toward it, my hands reaching out of their own accord. Please. I whimper, fighting against the invisible force pulling me forward. I don't want this. I've done what you asked. Let me go. But there's no one left to hear my pleas. The composer is gone. The spirits of the previous victims have been released, and I'm alone with this monstrous instrument and the endless maddening music. As my fingers make contact with the writhing keys, a jolt of energy surges through me. Visions flood my mind. Vast cosmic landscapes, impossible geometries, beings of pure sound and vibration. I see the true scope of the symphony for the first time, and it's so much larger, so much more terrifying than I ever imagined. Oh God, I gasp, my fingers beginning to move across the twisted keyboard. This is only the first movement. There's so much more. The music pours out of me, a cascade of notes that defy earthly composition. With each measure, I feel myself changing, my humanity slipping away as I become more attuned to the cosmic melody. The room around me warps and shifts, the walls dissolving into swirling vortexes of color and sound. I'm no longer in the abandoned house, or perhaps the house has expanded to encompass all of reality. It's impossible to tell where the music ends and the world begins. As I play this new alien movement of the symphony, I become aware of other presences around me. Not the ghosts of the previous victims, but something else. Vast, incomprehensible entities, drawn to the music like moths to a flame. One of these beings speaks, its voice resonating directly in my mind. At last, it says, the words carrying a weight of eons. The concert begins anew. Play on, little conductor. Call us forth with your symphony. Terror and awe war within me as I realize the true purpose of this music. It's not just a composition, it's a summoning, a way to bridge the gap between dimensions and bring these cosmic horrors into our world. I won't do it, I try to say, but the words come out as notes instead. My rebellion is transformed into music, incorporated into the ever-growing symphony. Another entity, this one a writhing mass of tentacles and eyes, pulses with something that might be laughter. You have no choice, it thrums. You are the instrument now as much as that piano. The music must be played. The concert must continue. And I know, with a certainty that chills me to my core, that it's right. I'm no longer in control of my actions, my thoughts, my very being. I've become a conduit for this cosmic symphony, a mere vessel for powers beyond human comprehension. As I play on, my body continuing to warp and change, I cling to the last shreds of my humanity. I think of the life I left behind, of the simple joys and sorrows that once defined my existence. They seem so small now, so insignificant in the face of this eternal universe-spanning music. But still I hold on to them. They're all I have left as I feel myself dissolving into pure sound and vibration. The symphony builds to a crescendo, reality itself bending and breaking around me. And as the second movement nears its completion, I realize with a mix of horror and resignation that this is only the beginning. There are movements upon movements yet to come, each one drawing me further from humanity and closer to something else. The cosmic entities press closer, their anticipation a palpable force. Play on, they urge in their alien voices. Bring us forth. Let the true concert begin. And so I play, my once human fingers dancing across keys that were never meant for mortal hands. The music flows through me, around me, becoming me. I am the composer now, the conductor, the instrument, and the song itself. As the next movement begins, I send out a silent apology to the world I once knew. For I now understand that when this symphony finally truly ends, nothing will ever be the same again. As the twisted melody of the second movement fades, a moment of eerie silence descends upon the room. But it's short-lived. From the shadows, a new sound emerges, the discordant tuning of an orchestra warming up. I watch in horror as instruments materialize around the room, suspended in mid-air and playing of their own accord. A violin appears first, its strings vibrating without a bow. Its haunting melody intertwines with the piano's otherworldly notes. Then comes a cello, its deep, mournful tones adding a somber undercurrent to the growing symphony. A flute materializes next, its high, piercing notes cutting through the air like a knife. What is this? I gasp, my fingers still moving across the grotesque keys of the transformed piano. As if in answer, the walls begin to ripple and bulge. The withered husks of the previous victims, which I had glimpsed earlier in the hidden room, start to emerge. Their desiccated forms move with jerky, puppet-like motions as they take their places at the various instruments. A skeletal figure, barely more than a collection of bones held together by dried sinew, grasps the violin. Its jaw chatters as it draws the bow across the strings, producing a sound that's both beautiful and terrifying. Another corpse, its skin stretched tight over its skull, sits at a spectral harp, bony fingers plucking at strings that shimmer between existence and non-existence. Welcome, a voice whispers in my mind, to the orchestra of the damned. I try to pull my hands away from the piano, to stop this madness, but I'm no longer in control of my own body. Instead, I find myself standing, my arms raising of their own accord. No, I plead, even as I feel my body moving into the stance of a conductor. I don't want this. I can't do this. But my protests fall on deaf ears, or perhaps on no ears at all. The cosmic entities that had been drawn by the music press closer, their vast, incomprehensible forms filling the space around me. Conduct, they command in unison, their voices a symphony of eldritch horror. Bring forth the music of the spheres. Let reality be reshaped by your baton. My arms begin to move, cutting through the air in precise measured motions. With each wave of my hands, the orchestra responds. The violin's keening wail rises and falls. The cello's mournful drone ebbs and flows. The flute's piercing notes dance and weave through the melody. As I conduct this nightmarish ensemble, I feel something fundamental changing within me. With each gesture, each cue to the undead musicians, I feel my humanity slipping away. It's replaced by something else, a pure distilled essence of music and cosmic horror. What's happening to me? I cry out, but my voice is lost in the growing crescendo of the orchestra. One of the cosmic entities, a swirling mass of tentacles and eyes, pulses with what might be amusement. You are becoming, it thrums, shedding the limitations of your mortal form, embracing your true potential as a conduit of the eternal symphony. I want to argue, to fight against this transformation, but the music is all-consuming. It fills every fiber of my being, every corner of my mind. I am the conductor, the orchestra, and the music itself, all at once. As the symphony builds to a fever pitch, I catch a glimpse of my reflection in the polished surface of a ghostly tuba. What I see sends a shock of horror through me. My skin has become translucent, my bones and organs visible beneath. I'm fading, becoming one with the house, with the music, with the very fabric of this twisted reality. No, I whisper. But even as I do, I feel my fear and horror being transformed into music. My emotions become notes, my thoughts become melodies. My very essence becomes part of the grand cosmic symphony. The undead orchestra plays on, their skeletal forms swaying with the rhythm. The violin weeps tears of blood. The cello's strings vibrate with the screams of the damned. The flute's notes pierce the veil between dimensions. And through it all, I conduct. My arms move with inhuman grace, shaping the music, molding reality itself with each gesture. The walls of the house pulse and breathe, expanding outward to encompass more and more of the world beyond. One of the cosmic entities speaks again, its voice a chorus of 1,000 dying stars. Yes, it exults. The boundaries weaken, the veil thins. Soon we shall pass through, and all shall know the glory of the eternal concert. I want to resist, to fight against this madness, but I'm powerless in the face of the music's overwhelming force. With each passing moment, I feel myself dissolving further. becoming less human and more something else. The orchestra reaches a crescendo, the music swelling to impossible heights. Reality bends and warps around us, the laws of physics breaking down in the face of this eldritch symphony. I see glimpses of other worlds, other dimensions, all pulsing in time with the beat of our infernal music. As my body continues to fade, becoming one with the house and the music, I cling to the last shreds of my humanity. I think of the life I left behind, of the simple joys and sorrows that once defined my existence. They seem so small now, so insignificant in the face of this cosmic concert. But still, I hold on to them. They're all I have left as I feel myself dissolving into pure sound and vibration. The symphony builds to a fever pitch, reality itself bending and breaking around us. And as this movement nears its completion, I realize with a mix of horror and resignation that this is only the beginning. There are movements upon movements yet to come, each one drawing me further from humanity and closer to something else. The cosmic entities press closer, their anticipation a palpable force. Conduct on, they urge in their alien voices. Bring us forth. Let the true concert begin. And so I conduct, my once human arms guiding an orchestra of the damned through a symphony that was never meant for mortal ears. The music flows through me, around me, becoming me. I am the composer now, the conductor, the instrument, and the song itself. As the next movement begins, I send out a silent apology to the world I once knew. For I now understand that when this symphony finally, truly ends, nothing will ever be the same again. The concert continues, and I with it, lost in an eternal maddening melody that will reshape the very fabric of reality. The orchestra of the damned plays on, and I, their fading spectral conductor, guide them towards a finale that will shatter the boundaries between worlds and usher in an age of cosmic horror beyond imagining. The symphony swells to a fever pitch, each note reverberating through the very fabric of reality. The house, no longer a mere structure of wood and stone, pulses and sways like a living, breathing entity. Walls ripple like water, floors undulate beneath our feet, and the ceiling stretches impossibly high, revealing swirling cosmic vortexes beyond. As I conduct this nightmarish orchestra, my translucent arms cutting through the air with inhuman grace, I feel the last vestiges of my humanity slipping away. I am becoming one with the music, with the house, with the infinite cosmic horror that surrounds us. Yes, hisses one of the eldritch entities hovering nearby, its form a writhing mass of tentacles and eyes. The barriers weaken, the veil thins. Play on, conductor. Bring forth the end of all things. I want to resist, to stop this madness, but my body is no longer my own. I am an instrument of the music now, as much as the skeletal violinist or the desiccated cellist. The symphony pours through me, reshaping reality with each crescendo and diminuendo. Suddenly, with a particularly violent surge of music, reality itself fractures around us. The walls of the house shatter like glass, revealing glimpses of other worlds and dimensions bleeding through the cracks. I see impossible landscapes, cities built from crystalline structures that defy geometry, and vast empty voids teeming with unspeakable horrors. Behold, thrums another cosmic entity, its voice a chorus of 1,000 dying stars. The multiverse opens to us, all realities, all possibilities laid bare by the power of our grand symphony. As I continue to conduct, my gaze is drawn to one of these dimensional rifts. What I see there sends a shock of horror through what remains of my human consciousness. It's me, or rather, another version of me. This doppelganger stands before a twisted piano in a house that mirrors our own, conducting an orchestra of the damned just as I am. No, I try to gasp, but the word comes out as a surge of discordant notes from the ghostly horn section. My attention flits from rift to rift, and in each one, I see another version of myself. Some are further along in their transformation, barely more than spectral outlines conducting armies of cosmic horrors. Others are earlier in the process, their faces etched with the same terror and confusion I once felt. "You see now?" asks the first entity, its multitude of eyes fixed upon me. This concert plays out across all realities, all dimensions, an infinite loop of musical torment, reshaping the very fabric of the multiverse. As this revelation sinks in, I feel something stir within what's left of my human soul. A spark of defiance, a desperate desire to break free from this endless cycle. But how can I hope to change anything when I'm no longer in control of my own actions? The symphony builds towards its grand finale, each instrument pushing beyond the limits of sound and sanity. The cosmic entities press closer, their anticipation a palpable force that threatens to tear reality apart at the seams. Almost there, they chant in unison, their voices shaking the foundations of existence. The final movement approaches. Play on, conductor. Usher in the age of eternal music. As my arms continue to guide the orchestra through its mind-bending performance, I struggle to assert some control over my actions. It feels like trying to swim against a tidal wave of pure sound, but I push on, focusing every ounce of my remaining will on my right hand. I won't let this happen, I think fiercely, though I know my thoughts are being transformed into music even as they form. There has to be a way to end this. The cosmic entities sense my resistance. They surge forward, their eldritch forms twisting and writhing in agitation. "No!" they roar, the sound threatening to tear apart the last shreds of my consciousness. The symphony must be completed. The concert eternal must begin. But their very vehemence gives me strength. In their fear, I sense a weakness, a possibility. As we near the end of the symphony, I make a desperate attempt to change the ending. With every fiber of my being, I focus on my right hand. For a moment that stretches into eternity, nothing happens. Then, slowly, agonizingly, my fingers begin to curl inward. "What is this?" demands one of the entities, its form flickering with alarm. The conductor resists. I ignore their cries, pouring all of my will into this one simple action. My hand closes into a fist, and for the first time since this madness began, I feel a sense of control returning. The orchestra falters, the undead musicians looking towards me in confusion. The cosmic entities howl in rage and fear, their forms beginning to lose cohesion as the music wavers. "No!" they shriek. "You cannot stop the concert. You cannot change the score." But I can. With the last of my strength, I bring my fist down in a final, decisive motion. The orchestra responds, but not with the triumphant crescendo the entities expected. Instead, a discordant, chaotic jumble of notes erupts from every instrument. Reality lurches, the dimensional rifts shuddering and twisting. The house groans, its impossible architecture beginning to collapse in on itself. The cosmic entities wail in dismay as their forms start to dissolve. "What have you done?" they cry, their voices fading as they're pulled back to whatever dark dimension spawned them. The symphony, the eternal concert. I watch in a mixture of horror and exhilaration as everything around me begins to crumble. The undead orchestra dissolves into dust, their instruments clattering to the floor before vanishing into nothingness. The walls of the house collapse, revealing a void beyond that slowly fills with the normal reality I once knew. As the chaos unfolds, I feel my body beginning to solidify. The translucent skin becomes opaque once more, and I can no longer see the bones beneath. The cosmic music that has filled my mind for so long fades away, leaving behind a blessed, ordinary silence. Finally, with a sound like the universe itself heaving a great sigh, everything stops. I find myself standing in the ruins of the old house, surrounded by broken furniture and dust-covered debris. Of the cosmic entities, the undead orchestra, and the twisted instruments, there is no sign. For a long moment, I simply stand there, breathing heavily, trying to process what has happened. Am I truly free? Has the nightmare finally ended? As if in answer, I hear a faint melody drifting on the wind. For a heart-stopping moment, I fear it's starting all over again. But no, this is just an ordinary tune, probably from a neighbor's radio. The sound of it, so mundane and earthly, brings tears to my eyes. Slowly, cautiously, I make my way out of the ruined house. The sun is setting, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink. The sight of it, so normal and yet so beautiful, is almost more than I can bear. As I step onto the sidewalk, a passerby gives me a curious look. "Are you all right?" he asks, taking in my disheveled appearance and the ruins behind me. I open my mouth to respond, but no words come out. How can I possibly explain what I've been through? How can I describe the cosmic horrors I've witnessed, the multiversal symphony I've conducted? In the end, I simply nod. "I'm fine," I manage to croak out. "Just glad to be here." The man gives me another puzzled look before continuing on his way. I watch him go, marveling at the simple normalcy of his existence. Will I ever be able to return to that? Or has my brush with cosmic horror changed me forever? As I begin the long walk home, I find myself humming softly under my breath. It's not the maddening symphony that nearly destroyed reality, but a simple human tune. For now, at least, that's enough. But even as I revel in my newfound freedom, a small part of me wonders, in some other reality, in some other dimension, is another version of me still conducting that infernal orchestra? And if so, will they find the strength to break free as I did? The thought sends a shiver down my spine. But for now, I push it aside. I've escaped the eternal concert, changed the score, and brought the performance crashing down. Whatever comes next, whatever cosmic horrors may still lurk in the shadows of reality, I'll face them with the knowledge that even the grandest symphony can be silenced by a single, discordant note. The cacophony of the Eldritch Symphony abruptly ceases, plunging the world into a silence so profound it's almost painful. After an eternity of sound, the sudden absence is disorienting, leaving me reeling in the quiet. For a moment, everything is still. Then, with a groan that seems to emanate from the very foundations of reality, the house begins to crumble. Walls cave in, floors buckle, and the ceiling collapses in a shower of debris. The instruments that had been floating in midair crash to the ground, shattering into splinters and dust. The ghostly orchestra, those poor souls trapped in an endless performance, dissolve like mist in the morning sun. I stand motionless, watching as the nightmarish world I've been a part of for so long disintegrates around me. The cosmic entities that had hovered at the edges of perception are gone, banished back to whatever incomprehensible dimension they came from. The rifts in reality seal themselves, leaving behind only the faintest shimmer in the air, like heat haze on a summer day. As the dust settles, I become aware of a change in myself. The translucent, spectral quality that had overtaken my body is gone. I look down at my hands, solid and opaque once more. I press my fingers to my wrist and feel the steady thump of a pulse. I'm human again. Or at least, as human as I can be after what I've experienced. Is it over? I whisper, my voice hoarse from disuse, or perhaps from screaming melodies I can no longer remember. There's no answer, of course. I'm alone in the rubble of what was once a house of horrors. The silence stretches on, broken only by the settling of debris and the distant sounds of a normal world continuing on, oblivious to the cosmic drama that has just unfolded. Slowly, cautiously, I begin to move. My legs are shaky, unused to supporting my weight after so long conducting the infernal orchestra. I pick my way through the ruins, stumbling over broken floorboards and shattered instruments. As I near what used to be the front door, a glint of something catches my eye. Half buried in the rubble is a small object. I bend down, brushing away dust and splinters, to reveal a metronome. It's an old-fashioned one, made of dark wood with a brass pendulum. Miraculously, it seems undamaged. Without thinking, I pick it up. The weight of it in my hand is comforting, a solid anchor in a world that has become all too fluid and uncertain. I tuck it into my pocket, not quite sure why, but feeling that it's important somehow. Finally, I step out of the ruined house and onto the street. The normality of the scene before me is almost as shocking as the cosmic horrors I've witnessed. Cars drive by, people walk their dogs, a group of children ride past on bicycles. No one seems to notice the collapsed building behind me, or the disheveled, wild-eyed man standing in front of it. I take a deep breath, relishing the simple act of filling my lungs with ordinary air. The scents of car exhaust, freshly mown grass, and someone's barbecue mingle in a gloriously mundane cocktail. I've never appreciated the ordinary so much. But as I stand there, basking in the return to normality, something changes. At first it's so faint I think I'm imagining it. But no. There it is again. A melody, drifting on the breeze. It's unlike the maddening symphony that nearly destroyed reality. Yet there's something familiar about it. My blood runs cold as I realize what I'm hearing. It's not coming from anywhere around me. It's coming from inside my own head. No, I mutter, pressing my hands to my ears. No, it's over. It has to be over. But the melody persists, growing stronger with each passing moment. It's beautiful in a way that defies description, a tune that speaks of cosmic truths and impossible realities. And with a growing sense of horror, I realize that I'm not just hearing it. I'm composing it. My fingers twitch at my sides, conducting an invisible orchestra. My mind races with harmonies and counterpoints, with instrumental arrangements that no earthly musician could ever hope to play. The music builds in my head, a symphony even grander and more terrible than the one I've just escaped. And then I understand. The performance isn't over. It's only just begun. I stagger down the street, the music in my head growing louder with each step. People give me a wide berth, no doubt seeing the manic gleam in my eyes, the way my hands move in strange conductor-like gestures. "Are you all right, mister?" a young boy asks as I stumble past, his mother quickly pulling him away. I want to warn them, to tell them to run, to get as far away from me as possible. But when I open my mouth, what comes out is a snatch of melody, a fragment of the cosmic symphony building in my mind. The boy's eyes widen, and for a moment I see a flicker of something in them. A recognition, perhaps, of the vast and terrible music that now lives inside me. His mother hurries him away, shooting worried glances over her shoulder. I continue my shambling journey down the street, the music growing stronger, more insistent. It demands to be heard, to be played, to reshape reality once more. And I, God help me, I want to let it. My hands dip into my pocket, fingers closing around the metronome I salvaged from the ruins. As I pull it out, I notice something I missed before. There's an inscription on the base, written in flowing script. To keep time with the heartbeat of the universe. A laugh bubbles up from my chest, equal parts hysteria and dark amusement. Of course it wouldn't be that easy to escape. I wind the metronome, my movements jerky and desperate. The steady tick-tock fills the air, a rhythmic counterpoint to the melody in my head. People on the street stop and stare, drawn despite themselves to the strange music. Don't listen, I try to warn them, but my words come out as lyrics, sung in a voice that resonates with cosmic power. Please, run while you still can. But they don't run. They can't. The music has them now, just as it has me. I see it in their eyes, the dawning wonder, the growing understanding of realities beyond their comprehension. One by one, they begin to sway to the rhythm of the metronome, to hum along with the melody only I can fully hear. And I realize, with a mixture of dread and exhilaration, that I am no longer the conductor. I am the composer. The performance has only just begun, and I am now seeking new players for my infernal symphony. A young woman steps forward, her eyes glazed with the music's power. "What is this?" she asks, her voice trembling with awe and fear. "What's happening?" I look at her, seeing not just her physical form, but the musical potential within her. In my mind's eye, I see her as a flute, her breath becoming notes that could pierce the veil between worlds. "It's the music of the spheres," I reply, my voice resonating with harmonics no human throat should be able to produce. "The song of creation and destruction. And you are its newest instrument." She should run. They all should. But I know they won't. Can't. The music has them now, just as it has me. We are all part of something greater, something terrible and beautiful beyond imagining. As the crowd grows, as more and more people are drawn into the growing symphony, I feel reality beginning to warp around us. The boundaries between dimensions grow thin. The laws of physics bend and flex to the will of the music. And somewhere, in the back of my mind, I hear the laughter of cosmic entities. They knew. They always knew. The symphony never truly ends. It just finds new composers, new conductors, new players. As the music swells, as reality fractures around us, I raise my arms to conduct this new growing orchestra. The performance has begun anew. And this time, I am not the trapped musician, but the mad composer, leading the world into a cacophony of cosmic horror. The metronome ticks on, keeping time with the heartbeat of the universe. And I, once the unwilling conductor, now the eager composer, embrace my role in this eternal, infernal symphony.